Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So today we're going to talk about the on-market program that a lot of y'all are. I know Andre's done some of it. Megan's done a little bit of it. Miss Gwen's just getting into it right now. And then some of the other people that'll be watching it later have been making some calls for us too. It's predominantly addressing and looking at properties that we're going to go after that are on market on the MLS. There may be some words in here too. That if you're not familiar with an acronym, I try to write all the definitions in there as I went, but if there's any acronyms in here that you're not fully familiar with, let me know and I'll stop and we can cover those. And if there's a topic or anything that doesn't make sense, or if I say anything wrong, contractual wise or anything, Andre, holler at me too, make sure I don't misspeak. And then I can break them down, and I'm gonna go kind of high level over what the entire, I call it organization, the entire business is, kind of what I'm doing, what the callers are going to be doing, then what Richie and I are doing. Richie will be here in a little bit. And Richie's helping a lot on the back end with finding, if we're going to wholesale it, finding buyers for them. We also are going to address a specific buyer that we are working with now. We have a couple of individuals that are in groups that are buying dozens of houses every month reoccurring, and so we're starting to curtail it particularly towards them so we can try to meet their needs, because if they have consistently, right now they're consistently buying around 40 houses a month, this one buyer. So if we can feed that, that'll help us hone in our tool and be very beneficial for all parties. And it's simpler if you only have to deal with one person, because you can know exactly what they want, what they're looking for. So we're curtailing. I've done a lot of the scrubbing and the analytics up front instead of going, and I'll go ahead and get to that. So what do? We really just do, if you boil it down, we do three things. We locate houses, we negotiate the prices on houses, and then we buy the houses. Really, we get the houses under contract and we sell the contract, or we buy the house if we're going to keep it for our portfolio. But it's pretty simple. It can seem overwhelming, and there's a lot of pieces embedded in all of that, and there's a lot of different things that fall under there. But if you really boil it down, it falls into one of these three buckets. I am going to, I already said, but just for the video, I'm going to upload the video so they can watch it later. And I'll also attach the PowerPoint on there. I was going to try to get printouts for today, but I wasn't able to do that because we had a lot of issues at work yesterday. But that way we can take notes on them too if you want, because some people I know are note takers. But so we're going to go through these three. So kind of the structure we're going to go through today, I'm going to talk about the main bullet points under how we're locating houses. Then I'll talk about the main bullet points under negotiating the price on the houses, which are where the callers and a lot of y'all come in, helping in this aspect. And then the main pieces and moving parts under buy houses. It's not as critical for y'all per se to understand necessarily these top two, because it really just focus on this one for now. And as we get better at how we're making the offers and calling and whatnot, we can then bring in the information. But I wanted y'all to be able to see the whole process, because I figured the more comfortable you are with the process, the more confidence you'll have as you're talking to an agent. I know a couple people were joking before we started, but yeah, some of these people can be very vicious in the industry, and if they sense any lack of confidence, they'll jump all over it. And so I want y'all to be as confident as you can when you're making the offers, to understand what we're doing and have confidence in the offers, but not to the point where you feel overwhelmed with how much information there is. So locate houses, and I'm primarily doing this. What I'm doing is I review the active houses listed on the multiple listing service. You'll hear me reference that as MLS. Basically, that's what all the realtors, database that all the realtors put the houses in that they're contracted to sell. They can sell, they can be for sale or for rent. There's also on those websites, that's like your Redfin, your Zillow, your Realtor, your Trulia, your big HAR, your big websites. HAR is Houston Area Realtors, which is pertinent to us because that's the metro that we live closest to. HAR pretty much dominates this entire area. If you go to DFW, there's another one. If you go to San Antonio, there's another one. Austin, there's another one. Camera just died. That's fine. I'll do it later. Just turn it off and then I can film it later at home. It looks like it lost sync. But it lost sync. You have to check the Bluetooth. Turn the power off and on the actual camera, on the gimbal, on the right side.
Here?
No, on the bottom right by the trigger. There's a power button. Look on by your pointer finger. There's a power button. Turn it off and then turn it back on and it'll resync. HAR is our main MLS. MLS is a national database. It can be national, and the national one is called NAR, National Association of Realtors. But they kind of govern the overarching, and then the local ones is like your HAR, and then San Antonio has another acronym. I'm not as familiar with those right now at this moment. But so, because the gimbal isn't engaged, it hasn't balanced yet. No, if I'm just in the picture and it's recording, just leave it at that and I'll mess with it later. So we pull all the houses on there. Now, right now, I mentioned that we have a specific buyer right now that's pretty tight, what's called a buy box, and I'll address the buy box in a minute. So out of that, the individual we're currently working with targets about 50 specific zip codes across the greater Houston area. And so what we're doing is pulling all the houses that are for sale in those 50 zip codes. They only will buy in those 50 zip codes. And then even within those, they have what we call a buy box. A buy box means these are the physical and financial parameters that if you meet this, I will buy it. And it can be anything. It could be the color of the house. It could be the number of windows. There can be ridiculous things in there. Or it could just be like in this case, since this is a financial individual, it's square footage, it's zip codes, it's a minimum and a maximum square footage, minimum beds and baths, minimum size garage, appearance. There's a certain types of appearance. This individual will not buy a house with a pool because of insurance reasons, because they're going to rent them. They look for, and they're not always necessarily the highest end houses, but they're also not always the lowest end houses either. This group in particular, they have a pretty tight box because their primary focus is what's called a cap rate. And the cap rate is essentially how much money is it going to cost them to invest and how much money are they going to make. So they're looking at the percentage of what they're making on return on their money. And so that also, the financials can be embedded in their buy box. The financials not only could be the cash flow, it could also be how much equity do I have in the house when I'm done. All those factor into their buy box. So we meet, Richie and I meet with the person that's buying, the investors, and we build basically an avatar profile for these buyers. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this just so y'all understand how we have confidence in what we're offering. So once we understand that, we build a profile for them. Then when we build a profile for them, we go scrub all the data that we pulled, looking for what houses fit the profile of what they're looking for. It's not perfect. It's not an exact science because you're guessing on some of the stuff and you have to make some assumptions. But it's pretty good. It's getting pretty accurate. I've been playing with it for the last 4 or 6 weeks and we've gotten it honed in pretty close, which is why we're doing the training now. We're going to start pushing out these houses in particular. Then after we do that and we do the initial scrub here, we run analytics on these target houses and we validate, are these legitimate leads? So the way that we do this is I have another layer of analysis that goes in through my tool that we have. And it goes through and it checks, does it meet these buy boxes? It goes back through and it looks at it. And it says, is it really this? Is it really that? Is it really built between this time frame and this time frame? Is it really in this zip code? Is it really? And it kind of validates it. It also compares and contrasts the numbers on the financials. So we need to spend half a second on this because, well, actually, I'll do it on the next one. Then after we validate the physical parameters again to make sure they're still good so we're not wasting our time, we go into the financials. And I start validating the financials on them. Yes, Mo?
When you say validating, is that our side of like when we look at the pictures of the houses?
It will be in a minute. But what I'm doing right now is validating just off the pure data doesn't make sense. So an example of that is, and I can show you because it may make sense if I show you. More sense if I show you real quick.
Well, because I just remember you saying like when we make the offer, like as we're talking to the agents, we're like, and I see that the house is, you know, some of the pictures look like it needs updating the kitchen, and like we're validating why we're making the offer that we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you just validate and make sure the kitchen says it has an island, does that kitchen actually have an island?
Right.
Okay.
At that point, does it? Yes. Is it really there? Is the house falling apart? This buyer doesn't want to do a heavy lift. They don't want a full gut rehab. They want to update max kitchens, baths, flooring, paint inside and out. They want to be in and out and get it rented quickly. They're buying and holding. They're not flipping. Flippers sometimes will buy a deeper rehab, meaning they'll buy a house that looks like it's falling over because there's more equity potential in it. A lot of flippers model is the stinkier it is, the better it is, right? Because they can get it cheaper because a lot of people won't deal with the house. What I'm talking about validating at that point is,
I didn't mean it.
no, this is a good question. So what I'm validating, and this is behind the curtain, so this is pulling in raw data on the houses, filtering by zip code, prices. So their buy box, they don't want a house that has a fixed value. So when the house is completely fixed and renovated over a certain price. So I've already filtered all that out. Then what it's doing is it's going in and it's looking at what's the estimated after repair value, ARV. ARV is critical when you're doing this. Sorry for all the colors, but it helps me keep it straight when I'm looking. So this is the estimated value that this house will be worth once it's 100% fixed up like new. Now, what this column does is I pull the data for that zip code in that neighborhood and say, what's the median sales price for an average house in that neighborhood? And it knows what that is. I have that on another table that it's actually pulling the data and comparing it. So I'm doing a bunch of comparing functions here. And it says this house is 108% of the median price. So anything usually around 15, 20% is probably going to be okay as long as there's a characteristic that makes it worth more. So if the average square foot is 1,800 square feet and I got a 2,000 square foot house and it's at 109 or 110%, it makes sense. The square footage is a little bigger than the average, so it's going to cost a little bit more. Now, when I look at it, it's got to be nice, right? You can't have a bigger house that looks dumpier and still have a higher price. The price will come back down. So what it's doing is it's looking at the average median sales price for that zip code in the last 30 days because the market's changing pretty fluidly right now. So I'm looking at the last 30 days here, and that's calculated actually on this tab. And then it's comparing the estimated ARV, which is looking at the average price per square foot for the median house for that zip code. So it assumes that this is an average house in average condition that's then rehabbed to brand new condition. Does that make sense? And then it spits out, this should be the value if it was built like it was a brand new house. And then it compares it to what the average sales price is. Because if I get one like this, 132%, that's got to throw a flag up. Because it's harder to sell. The closer to the average price it is, the easier you're going to be able to move the house. Now, some of these zip codes are moving 600-700 houses every month around the average price. So the closer we are towards the median, the closer to 100. If it's real below 100, then it's undervalued. So then there's something, it may be too small, right? It may be the ugliest, smallest house on the block. That's not a bad thing because the rest of the houses can bring it up. But you got to understand that. And there's no way to do that for 2,500 houses quickly without, and this was the best way I was able to do that, but it's making some assumptions. The assumptions are that we're targeting an average style house and that we're comparing it to the average.
Now, when we're doing the calls, you've already like scaled down the ones that are closer to the.
I'm going to show you all that.
Okay.
We'll get to that part. But to answer what I'm doing, I'm then also looking at predicted rent. Now, these are all different. All these are for different types of formulas. So don't get bogged down by all these and the wholesale fees and everything else. These are all for different types of formulas. And I'm trying 4 different buy formulas to see which one's the most accurate for this buyer. And we settled on a standard one. That's what Richie and I have been doing. We've actually been doing onesie, twosie deals with this buyer and getting into negotiations and actually losing some contracts just to get behind the curtain on them to see where they actually paying or buying. And so I'm adjusting them. So don't worry about this other stuff right now, except for this. This is doing the same thing as the buy, but it's looking at the rent. So I pulled 150 comps with the same buy box for every zip code, averaged out the rent per square foot and averaged out the total rent for that zip code. Because if I go buy a 4,000 square foot house in the middle of Freeport, I'm not going to get $4,000 a month in rent unless it's on the water and I Airbnb it, right? If it's in a neighborhood. So it's doing the same thing. It's predicting what the rent would be on this property, and then it's showing you versus the average. So like this one, you're probably going to be able to get more rent. Because on the lower end, if you have a smaller house that the rents are typically higher and it's in a nicer neighborhood and you fix it up to where it looks brand new, you'll probably get more rent than this. but you're not probably going to get 31% the average, right? That's telling you the house is probably oversized and your rent's probably not going to be that high. So we're factoring some of that in. It's a gut check of, is this real or is this not? And I'm working on building some smarter analytics into it to figure out, all right, if this is at 131, I'm going to add another column in that then says fix this back to 120% and then autocorrect the real rent. Does that make sense? Because basically what it's saying is realistically, like my house here in Freeport, it should have been able to rent statistically by the numbers for about $2,000 a month, but you're not going to rent a 4.2 in the middle of Freeport for $2,000 a month. We rented it for $1,800. So it was below the average rent per square foot, but it was $150 above the average actual rent. So there's a give and a take. It's an inexact science, but it's the best that we can do to scrub the data. When I say scrub the data, I'm then using that to project their annualized profit off of each house from the rent. Because they care about this, because they care about the cap rate. So I'm calculating all this stuff to make sure we're hitting their parameters. So when I say I'm scrubbing the data and analyzing and doing those validation checks, I'm trying to make sure all of these boxes are checked and we're meeting as many of their requirements. And you're not going to meet all of them, right? If you ever gone and look for a house or an apartment or a car, you don't hit every box. But we try to get as many as we can because the ones we have as many boxes checked, the higher probability they're going to buy it. Now, the other thing that we figured out recently in like the last 2 weeks that we haven't fixed in here yet, they weight the school system too. And so I'm trying to get their full scorecard on how exactly, because they basically plug in, it sounds like 15 to 20 data points for every house, and it spits out a score, and then that tells them what they're going to buy off. Because we had one house, they bought at like 92%, which is insane. That's like almost full market value, and it still needed repairs. That's 92% plus repairs. They overpaid what the actual house would have sold for because of the rent and the school district and everything else. But then we had another house, they were only at 77, 78% on. But it was because we found out it was because of the school. So that's why we're throwing darts at random places and we're getting these other nodes that factor into their formula. And then the more nodes that I get, the more columns I'm adding to try to hone these numbers in better and better. So that's when I say I'm validating the data, that's what we're working through. And I'm working through all these different columns. So I'm trying to check this price, but when I check this price and I modify this price, it adjusts this rate. So then a house that looks great now may drop out. So I'm working on balancing all of those, and we don't catch every single one of them. Some of them are still out of the balance. But I'm trying to make sure the number that I give you as the max offer has a 90+% chance of them buying it, is what I'm trying to do. Yes, because the last thing you want to do, and I think Andre could attest to this, because if you're an agent and somebody's constantly locking up your house and it doesn't perform, it's annoying, right? And that's the last thing we want to do. Most wholesalers do that. They'll promise the moon just to get a house under lock, and then they'll nig or cancel the contract day in, day out. They don't care. But we're trying to go for a longer term relationship, which you'll see in the next slide. Then the last part, which we just talked about, I already covered. I'm validating those financials. So I'm running the algorithm, the initial, then I validate the financials and I try to set the starting price and the MAO. So that way the MAO is a max allowable offer. Usually I'm setting the starting price about 10 grand under the MAO because since there's so many assumptions in there, and let me cover another assumption because it goes into what Megan was saying or asking. One of the other assumptions is that it's an average rehab. An average rehab is paint inside and out, flooring, new flooring, remodeled the kitchen and the baths. If it hits any of the big stuff, what I'll call the big five, and I'll cover those in the next slide, it's not that we can't make an offer, but we won't make that offer that's on the sheet because I need to readjust the rehab numbers. And I'm working on building a tool for y'all in the sheets, in your sheets, that you could change it from average to light, which is just paint and flooring, or you can change it to heavy, which is basically a full gut, and it'll automatically update your number. So as you're on the phone, you'll be able to automatically, well, it's on there. I have that built in. But it's based off of price per square foot. What we've done is we've worked with a bunch of contractors and investors, and we've gotten what it's on average costing them for our area to do a light, an average, and a heavy rehab. And I built that in. It's actually, I have the functionality on here. I haven't figured out how to, so like here, if I just click this and I move it to a heavy,
Wow.
it'll auto adjust all of your stuff and give you a new price. But I'm trying to get that to where it's automated onto y'all sheets. So when I have your sheet in your Google Drive and you hit it, it'll just, but I don't have that functionality yet because this can do it because it's all in one query. It's all in one database. But when I split it out into 7, it still has to have like a master database. And I'm trying to figure out that connection right now. I want
That's
to,
not part of your validation, that's part of what you want Andre to do.
whoever's calling,
To assess whether or not we're looking at a light, heavy, or medium.
I'm defaulting to average, and that's what my price is. So
Your validation is not to go look at the pictures of the house and go, this ain't average, this is light or heavy.
no, because I can't go through all 2,500 of them.
That's what you want, that's what you want.
And that's on the next slide. That's what we're going to do. Before we call, we look at the pictures and read, and that's one change we're going to have to do now with this buyer. We have to look at the pictures and read the blurb. And then when we're talking to the agent, actually, I'll go ahead and get to that part on the slide.
Because that's what we're doing, right? Because we're the ones that are making the offer.
Yes.
And you want us, whenever we update it
So-
on that sheet.
What we're doing now as the callers is when we call, we're trying to build the relationships with the agents. And I'm going to address that question actually right here. We're validating the condition of the property because it's based off of, we're assuming it's the average rehab. Come on, man. We're assuming it's an average rehab. And so if it's a light, it's fine. We're actually over, like we're giving more cushion if it's actually not even an average rehab. All we're really trying to look at is make sure it's not needing a heavy lift, which most of these houses shouldn't, because I've already tried to scrub it with the asking price versus the ARV. But there could be people that think that they got gold, that it's not gold. But we shouldn't, because of the way I set up the parameters when I pull the data and scrub it, we should be knocking out the ones that are full guts, but I can't guarantee that I did. And so we're building, and I'll go into details each of these points here in a second. I have a slide on each one, but we're going to build relationships with the agents, and I'll talk through how we're going to do that, validate the condition of the property, and I built a new SOP for that and how we're going to do that, discover motivation, because we're trying to figure out how we need to frame the offer before we get to the offer. And then we're going to present the offer at the end because it's going to anchor the whole negotiation on what an investor is willing to pay for it. High level, these are the four goals and objectives and expectations while we're on the phone with the agents. It's been where I've gotten the most questions from everybody that's calling is, what do I do when I'm on the phone with the agent? Do I just tell them, hey, I got 150 sight unseen? Yeah, you can do that. And Rachel called me the first week and she said, I did this 3 or 4 times and they just kind of laughed. And I was like, yeah, I know. We got to do a little bit more. But, so she got it. But so then after we negotiate, and I'm going to go back to negotiate. I didn't spend a lot of time on it because I got a slide on each one. Then what Richie and I are doing when we go to the buy the houses section, which is the third part, I put a T in there. There's no T in there. No, I misspelled it again. Hey, we work together. So we'll provide the earnest money deposit and the option period funds. We also will open title. We get the title companies. We have different title companies depending what we're doing. And it was getting a little bit more challenging to actually find some of the title companies to do certain types of closing now after that NAR stuff. And then we market and secure a partner if we're JVing with somebody, or if we're going to get an end buyer if we're going to wholesale it. So this is the part where we're calling the people right now. We're working with 1 or 2 buyers right now that are buying bulk. We'll go meet with them, or we'll call and meet with them, and we'll find out what are they thinking on this property. But we want it under contract first. Because if we call them and give them an address, especially if it's on market, they could literally say, well, let me run the numbers, call back with you, and in 30 seconds, call that same agent and go put an offer in because they kind of know where we're already at. Mm-hmm. And so we prefer to have it under contract before we call them. Now, we've been throwing them onesie twosies to talk to them and kind of filling out that relationship because it's got to be a mutual trust between the two, because they honestly don't have the time to go look at all the houses and do all that. They don't want to. And that's the service that we're basically providing them, that they're paying us for, is to go hunt all this stuff down and get a contract. And then they're basically buying the contract from us, is how this works in a nutshell. But then we market with them and we'll secure the partner, and we'll do that basically called an assignment of contract. And it's an addendum to the TREC 1-4 that we add in there that then sells our rights in the contract to the end buyer, or it adds a JV partner. And if we do a JV, which is a joint venture, then we set up inspection, contractor validation. So this is when the actual buyer, so if we're going to keep it, we'll walk it with the contractors we're wanting to do the job with. If we're going to JV with someone, we'll walk it with them. Or if the end buyer, let's say this bulk buyer is going to buy it, they'll send their contractors and inspection person through to validate that what we told them is basically in the ballpark, the numbers we estimated. Sometimes we'll give them our estimated repair. Sometimes we won't. We'll just say, hey, this is what we're wanting to sell it for. Because everybody's number is a little different. It's a little tactic we use too to get their numbers back from them to see how much they think it costs to rehab. It helps us validate our numbers. And then at the end, everybody always asks, when did they get paid? Whenever it closes, we get paid. Up until that point, we're putting funds out. And when we put the option period out, and I forgot to cover this, the earnest money is 1%, typically up to 1,000. I've done 2 and 3 on a couple, but we try not to go too much more than that because you tie up a lot of money on these when we're looking at doing multiple deals a month. You're gonna have a lot of capital just sitting in earnest money. And then the option period is typically around $100, and that gives us a 10-day or 15 or 5 or whatever we negotiate period to back out of the contract, and all we lose is that $100 or whatever we pay for that option period. What's the standard right now, Andre? About 100?
Depends on where. Yeah, Houston likes 200. Around here, we still get away with 100. We still get away with $1,000 earnest money around here. When you go to Houston, they like that 1%.
Yeah.
But you just got to remember that when you're negotiating on earnest money, it's negotiable because the state of Texas does not require earnest money. It's only what they call it
good faith or something.
Show sign of good faith that I want to buy your house.
I thought you had to at least put even like $1 down. That was
No,
what you're saying. I mean, I guess they must have changed that because I've always been told, like, I've always put at least $1 down because sometimes made sure it was a viable contract.
So that's a lot of people don't understand. But when you go and you start reading Trek Legal and ethics, all that training, you'll see that earnest money in Texas is not required.
We did one a couple months back, and I think I did a $5 earnest one.
Sorry, you said 5, 10, 15. Like, how do you negotiate the?
You just throw it out.
You throw it out.
Oh,
And when you start training and you get going, you'll find out it's a lot of stuff in real estate that's just
Pretty much everything's negotiable. You just throw out a starting point.
You tell people, you say, you the buyer, what's your maximum? What's your perfect offer for this house we put together? And then they come back and say, oh no, we can change this, we can change that, we can change that.
Yep.
So it's nothing set. The only thing set in stone is the contracts and addendum that you use in the transaction to make sure you cover that as a licensed agent.
And that's that 10-point sheet that we worked through. The 10-point sheet, and I'll show that if y'all want. It has everything that we need in a contract to be able to wholesale it. I've sent you those before too. I think you've seen that. It has like price, it has earnest money, it has option period, funding and time frame, closing date, escrow company, our title company, access to the property. It basically everything we have to have, and we send that to the agent. If the agent's willing to do dual representation, we'll send them that 10 points and say, these are the 10 things I have to have in the contract. And it's like your name, if you have an LLC, the address you want on the contract for yourself, all of that. And we'll help provide that. It's actually in the Google Drives. All that documentation's in there. I have them in there. And we can get yours access. We'll figure out your stuff and get your access to it. But it's all in there. And that's part of the negotiation. Now it's a balance, because like on one of the last houses we did, we really wanted a like 10 to 15 day option period because we had the holidays. But to them, it was really big to cut the option period because they had already been held out for 10, 20 days before and nobody executed. So on like the Galena Park house, we cut that back down to 7 days. And then they ended up signing when we dropped it from 10 to 7. So we actually went up on price and down on option period, and they kept it. It's just another lever to pull. Any other questions on this before I get into the details for the calls? Okay. All right. So when we call the agents, the goals and expectations, we said build relationships. People do business with people they like. We want to be the people they like. Unfortunately, and I know Richie's dealt with other wholesalers too. Some of them, when I talk to them, and they approach me thinking I'm a seller, they're just blunt and rude, and they have no interpersonal skills at all. And we've also dealt with some realtors like that when we call them.
As a real estate agent, we deal with them all the time, especially, in the kind of business like a wholesale business. First thing they're gonna do is they're gonna put that wall up.
Yep.
Because when we as real estate agents, we list a house for say 150. We take pride in that 150 price.
Right.
And then you come and say, damn, they only want to offer me 80. Why am I off that? That's the first thing that you're saying. You guys, so you say yes. But that seller, it's just like anybody else. So you have this number in your head. Okay, you said 150. Wait a minute. You want to offer me 80, but you said 150, Andre. But they want to offer me 80. What's the disconnect? So now they start losing kind of trust in you as the listing agent. That's what happens when you start coming in at your door.
And that's when I was talking about understanding how we get our price, which I'll do a breakdown on that if we have time. The more I feel like I've seen, the more I can articulate why we're at 80 instead of 150, and that we're not emotionally buying it. It's a business, and this is how we get there. The more apt they are to at least listen. And it's not, hey, look, and I've even told some of them, I'm like, listen, keep it on the market. You can't sell it another 30 days, I'll be calling you every 7. So you'll keep hearing from me. And in 30 days, explain to them, start putting the bug in their ear. Because if they need to sell it or they want to move on, here's a viable option, and we'll close. Like, if this number, we will close. And so, I mean, there was that one lady I went back and forth with for like 8 weeks, and we ended up being $2,000 apart, but there was no way I could go up that $2,000. And she ended up losing the house, and they demoed it, and the city of Houston bulldozed it. And it was just like, but they owned it outright. They just would not come down anymore, but I couldn't go up anymore because I only found one investor that would buy it. Everybody else was going to bulldoze it. And the guy that would buy it was fixed on his price. He had already walked it, but it was the same thing. We got to joke, and I was like, hey, do you think about my offer? She goes, not unless you found some more zeros. And I was like, nope. I mean, it was a banter, right? And it's not, and that's what you got to make them. Real estate is very emotional and personal to people. And you got to understand that. But you also got to be able to bring in the business side of it and like, listen, look, this is where we're at. It's nothing personal, but this is a service we can provide. This is an option we can give you to be able to move it, but we got to be here, and this is why. And usually most people, when you explain to them, they may not like it, but at least they're not offended. And that's the main thing, because if you're building that long-term relationship, because it cultivates a long-term lasting pipeline of potential leads, because then they'll start calling you. I mean, Andre's called me with some houses he's seen and say, hey, do you think we could move this, or what could we move this at? And that's the type of relationship you want to build. And we want to normalize, because the more realtors that we can get to talk and communicate, it's a win-win, because they get paid off of it, and then we can move, and it's a force multiplier. Meaning, if you got 20 agents out there looking for you, I think there's a little under 15,000 agents in Houston. If you have 100 agents looking for you, you got 100, 200 eyeballs looking on top of yours. Like, they're looking the whole time, you're not. And so the odds of catching stuff's a lot better. And so I don't understand why a lot of these wholesalers go in there and just burn bridges left and right just to get a deal. Like, there's always tomorrow. There'll be another deal. I would rather lose a deal than get a bad deal on it, because there's more houses. And that took me a while to learn, about 8 months to learn, because what I'm seeing is there's 30 to 35,000 houses on the greater Houston MLS, and it turns over about every 45 days. So if you screw it up, wait 45 days. I mean, and that's where most people get so caught up. I got to get this one. I got to get this one. I got to get this one. And they make a dumb mistake. Be patient. Like the Freeport house, right? That we're still jacking around with a guy. Just be patient. Go to the courthouse, because it's going to go to the courthouse. I mean, it's the same thing. And that's one thing I've seen, and some people may not agree with me on that, but my approach is be patient on it, because eventually the houses are going to move. And if we know our numbers and we know where our buyers are at, and we're patient, they'll come. Because if the agents see, especially right now, I was reading the other day, it's like 24% of real estate brokers and real estate companies are struggling to actually pay their rent right now, like across the nation. I was reading it was in a HAR, it was either in the HAR than in the NAR newsletter I was reading, that they were saying that the brokers are having a hard time because the market's shifting. Because a lot of people that bought in the last 3 or 4 years are negative equity or upside down. And there's stuff they can't do. That's like I was explaining the other weekend, right? If they did an FHA, especially if they did a VA and finance 108% and the market dip, they can't sell the house and get out from it without paying cash. But that's where we can also come in with a different tool than the cash offer, but we can work with that. But if an agent brings that up, we could do a seller sub to, we could do other things with it. But that's where that relationship with those agents, because they'll call. There's 2 or 3 agents from church that call me. I'm like, hey, I got this house, it won't move. Can you do anything with it? And then we'll be like, all right, and I'll run some numbers, and then I'll talk to them about the financials. And it's like, not unless they're willing to do this, this, or this. So let it sit. And if they are, give me a call. Because some of them you can't do a cash offer. They owe too much on it. And that's where you got to do a sub 2 or creative finance. But we won't go into that. It's a whole nother beast.
That's a whole nother day.
That's a week. But the whole point of this, though, is it's free marketing. The average cost, when I talked to Moon, who's one of the main brokers for Lifestyles, the real estate group I'm in, they spend between $5,000 and $6,000 per lead right now to get a contract. And their average assignment right now is between 12 and 15. So they're doubling their investment, right? They're putting $1 in, they're getting $2.25 out, whatever. But we're putting, honestly, it's costing me a little over $100 a month for all the tools. And we're getting 2,500 leads that we're calling. Now they're cold leads, or they're semi-warm because they at least are on the market. But if we even pick up one contract out of that, and when we pick up a couple of them, what the plan is to be able to automate some of that to make it even better. Because right now it's still all dependent on me, but I've got some groups that we can automate it and get some AI built into it to make it even better. But we'll work on that. Validate condition of the property. This is what David was asking, so I wasn't ignoring your question. What we're going to do on this part is all of our offers are based off the basic assumptions around condition, that it's no more than an average rehab. So before we make the offer, we need to at least look at the picture and read through the blurb to make sure it doesn't say as is or repairs, or if we look at the pictures and there's major cracks in the walls, or it looks like there's a foundation, or the roof looks shot, or there's tarp on the roof, or window units, because they pretty much want central AC. These houses shouldn't because of the scrubbing that I've did. And I'm going to build a go-by, like a quick checklist of the big 5, which is roof, foundation, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. And if there's any major issues with those, we don't want to make the offer at the price that's on there, because the price that's on there is assuming the worst case scenario is an average rehab. If there's moving walls and stuff like that, I still probably wouldn't put that offer out there. If it looks real closed off, these houses shouldn't, because they're all, 1985 or 87 and newer. So there may be a few on the older end that they opened up, because I think we still had a few of those that had formal livings, formal dinings, where they open them up. But most of these houses shouldn't be those like 1950s and 60s and 70s houses where they're just blowing all the walls out, right? These are relatively newer homes that we're targeting.
You can't make that call off pictures.
Well,
How can you tell, without going to look at the house, how do you see foundation, age of the AC, good estimate on the roof?
That's
They're not just
not,
gonna put all that in the,
it's in the seller's disclosure.
okay.
So the first pass is looking at the pictures, right? Because some of the agents will actually put pictures of the problems in there if it's caused contracts to not go through.
Okay.
So if there's gross major issues that you can see, I'm not saying it's going to catch all of them. I'm not. But in the conversation, when we're talking with them, we're basing the assumptions. So we're looking at the pictures, and then we're also trying to talk to them and say, hey, so what's up with this house? What's the story on the house? And then talking with them through that. And then if it looks like we're even close, then we'll also get a seller's disclosure. I try not to bug them with a seller's disclosure unless we're even somewhat close on price. But the seller's disclosure legally should have all that in there. It also will have the rough estimate of the age of the major components.
If they do it right.
If they do it right. The other question that I've learned to ask is, when was the last time, are the bathrooms or kitchens updated? And if so, when was the last time? And it generally gives you a feel for what the age of the house
I
is.
think you can see that from the picture.
Right.
The stuff you talked about to make it average. Floor, bathrooms, kitchen.
Right.
I can look at the pictures and tell that. Foundation, roof, age of AC. I gotta go look at the house.
Seller's disclosure of the house.
So if you got a correct service code, it'll tell you age of the roof. It'll tell you any insurance claim that was on the house. It'll tell you if there's foundation issues, if there's cracks, anything like that. That a full filled out service disclosure will tell you all of that. But another thing is, if you got a house that you've seen on a contract before, you should tell them, ask them, hey, what happened?
Right.
Ask that agent, what happened? Why did it fall out? And the number one question you ask is, did you get a copy of the inspection report?
Yeah.
And then they'll say, yeah, we got it. Can you send it over to me? Even though that inspection report is not yours, that seller has knowledge of what's going on with that house. And so they should share that information because it's a legal document, even though it's not for them, it's for the buyer. But they should share that information because it pertains to that property. Because on that report, it asks, have you received an inspection report?
Right. And I've seen a couple of the agents actually are more willing to send it because they don't want to waste the time.
Okay, they don't waste your time.
Because if you get it locked up in an option period, they can't basically sell it for 10 more days or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And people aren't going to look at it if it's pending.
Nope.
And so a smart agent will send it to you as long as the sellers not have major objections to it, from what I've seen.
And most of the time they shouldn't because that's not the seller's report.
Right.
That's the other buyer's report. So they should send it to you regardless. And that way you got a leg up. I'm gonna still get my own inspection.
Right.
You know, but you got a leg up and say, oh damn, that roof. Woo. I don't know. So you at 220, we need a roof. We know we need a roof. Let's go 210 and just say, hey, look, because with 314, you always check as is, but there's another box below it you can check as is with a specific repair already in the negotiation.
If you're trying to get them to repair it before closing.
Before closing, or just say, look, I got this house, we're at 210. I'm gonna accept this property as is, but I know I would like the roof repaired. I would like the foundation done before in this negotiation here from Jump Street.
What have you seen, Richie, on them?
I don't like on the seller disclosure.
Well, that and just the conditioning ideas that can help us on.
I mean, typically, like if any of that stuff's new, they're gonna note it a lot. Even if it's a couple years old, they're gonna note it in the description. Because they're prideful of that. That's gonna help sell the house. If you don't see that typically in there, you can already start assuming that house is or that roof or the AC is at least 10 to 15 years old. So if you don't see that anywhere in the description, they're gonna want to put that in there because it just makes the house more valuable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's as agents, when we go to list a property, that's the first thing we ask them. Tell me what you've done in the last 5 years. And I could figure out how to put that into the buyer's remarks on the listing. Because there's 2 remarks. So you got public remarks, that's for the buyers to see. Then you got private remarks, that's what only agents see. So that's why you have to ask for the seller's disclosure, because HARA won't allow us to put that as a public file. It's the only public file we can put is like anything that we put on, like what we need on a checklist to put the listing on the to get a contract. We can't put a seller disclosure on that. That has to come from the agent. Sorry.
No, that's good because that's the more we understand about what tools we have and what we're up against and what we can use to get the information we need, the better product we can have. Then we're trying to eliminate as many surprises as we can with the big 5, but at the end of the day, you're right, David, we're not going to know until that final walkthrough. And that's why ultimately at the end we have that inspection period to walk out. But up until that point, there's no way, like until you get to the actual house at the end, and with the volume of offers, I mean, because right now we're looking at pushing out 150 to 200 offers a week. And if we're doing that, the odds of being able to get to all of those properties, we're not going to be able to until we get to that final point. We know.
The objective is to get the contract.
Yeah.
But, and that's especially true if you're selling it to, call it big buyer number 1, versus you're actually going to buy the house and do something with it and then try to flip it. That part gets more, you got to know more about the house. But if you're just trying to meet a sale box, and boom, I did, and check, it's gone, then you're not really worried about that as much, right? What I'm saying is, disclosure says the roof's 7 years old. Okay, it doesn't need to be replaced today.
Right.
So can I just say, forget the roof and move on? Yes, you can. Yeah, especially if you're selling it to big buyer number 1.
Right.
But if you're buying that house and you're going to try to flip it, then it gets a little more, what should I do about this roof? Put some money in for it or not? That type of thing, right? Because ultimately, you're just trying to get to a contract fast as you can.
Correct.
Up front. Because what you're saying is we can always get out. If we go find that we missed it, this one needed a roof, that's extra 20 grand.
Well, and before we get out, we'd actually try to renegotiate.
Yeah,
Most of the time, if it's only 10 years old, you're typically not messing with that roof. You can throw a roof wash on it for about $800 to $1,000.
Right. so ultimately, I guess what I'm trying to get back to is you're sticking average
Yep.
in the box. Average means floor, kitchen, bathrooms. I can see that from the picture.
Paint, but
I don't
that's,
know that getting beyond that matters all that much, right? Because that decision will get us to contract yes or no. And the big stuff, when we go out and look at it, we go, this house got to have a foundation repaired. Well, then we're back into what you said.
Right.
Renegotiate the contract with whoever we find.
Right.
They're actually going to find it.
when we would walk it with their contractors, and then that's where they'll find that and we'll know.
So I'm trying to figure out, because you're putting, if you go look at a house and try to decide, is it light, heavy, or average?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Me and Andre looking at it, we're probably just gonna stick with the average and try to get a contract, right? Assuming the pictures say the basics need to be done.
Right.
I'm thinking we're not gonna mess with that box a whole lot.
I don't think we will either, because I'm trying to eliminate where there shouldn't be much change there. But I was just saying, if you do look at it and it doesn't look, most of the houses, I would suspect when you look at them, you would think this is pretty much rent ready right now.
Which is what big buyer number one wants, right? He's
Yes.
not looking for any of this, you know.
Blow walls out,
Repair,
no.
roofs, AC, all, nah.
Now, Moon and them are. We have people that will buy those, so we can still use those leads. It's just for
Oh, okay.
the bulk buyer right now, we're not going to do that because it's not really their cup of tea. I mean, that's the sense I've gotten, right?
But even so, we're gonna find that after we've got a contract. So, and what our objective, the peons in this, get us a contract, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna play with that box a lot. I'm hearing,
No.
we're really not gonna play with that box.
That's why I haven't spent a lot of calories trying to modify it. I can modify it on that master sheet if I need to go back because it's easier for me to just do it there. But that's why I haven't spent a lot of calories figuring out on the individual stuff.
Because if we do, we're just gonna get you in trouble. We're
Right.
either gonna go heavy and price you out of a contract, or light and push you into a bunch of negotiations post-contract.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Then we were trying to eliminate surprises. And then just like y'all, everybody's talking about, it's a perfect segue. We want to get the agents and the sellers to talk about the property and open up about the house and the situation because it helps with our next point. The more we understand about the house, the more we understand with the agent and them, this is all creating an atmosphere, right, of trust and of just basically good business practices with the agent too, where they don't feel like you're trying to pull the wool over them. And then the final one, or not the final one, the next one that this feeds into is discovering motivation. There's already some level of motivation because they've already signed a contract and it's on the MLS. The question is, what is the level or the driver of the motivation? If we understand that, we know how to frame the offer to make it more appealing. The ultimate goal here, like David's saying, we're trying to get to a contract. If somebody's wanting to sell a house, there is something about their current state that they're wanting to change to get to a desired state, right? Either these houses aren't going to have too many repairs, most of them, that they're getting overwhelmed. A lot of them I've seen are vacant. They've already moved on, or they had renters, or renters aren't there anymore. They need to get the cash out. It's an investment property they need to get done. The family already moved on. They relocated. They need to upsize. They need to downsize. There's all kinds of reasons. I mean, you could have the wife woke up and decided she didn't like the color of the cabinets and I'm not painting them, so we're moving. Like, you could have anything. You've probably seen some crazy stuff too, Andre. But the understanding what the current state is and what the desired state is, the more you understand that, the better we can frame the offer. Because maybe it is option period. Maybe it is time to close. Maybe they care less about price and more about, I got to be out of here by the 30th, right? Maybe it's, I don't care about the time, I care about the price. Or maybe it's, I'm tired, I've had 5 wholesalers come through here and to tie my contract up, I care about option period. I want no option period, no contingencies. I don't care about price. I just don't want any contingency. I don't want to be jacked around anymore. I want all the cards on the table up front. I had somebody tell me that before. It's like, all right, 60, or what did I say? That's like 30% of your asking price. She started laughing. But it was one of those things, right? I had a guy call and said he called and said, can you close in 5 days? And I was like, well, yeah, but I'm going to offer you about 40% of what you're asking because I'm assuming a lot of risk.
That was, you were dealing with a seller and not a agent.
That was an agent when we called and made an offer. She countered back because I told her 30-day close with 10 days. She goes, can you close in 5 or 7?
Seems to be the key to the whole thing. To me, the only way you get that sensitivity is by befriending Andre. Because that changes too. The motivation thing changes. You called him on Monday, and the people he's dealing with, his seller, they're still holding fast on their thing. And then by Friday, something happened. And if you got a relationship with Andre, he might call you back and say, hey, you know, that house we talked about. That's the key to the whole thing is this motivation moves. And if you've got relationships with the agents, then you get in on those. If you don't, you don't.
What one of the guys taught me was that
And I'm still Andre because Andre's a real estate.
I know that.
Well, I tell you the problem that you run into as far as the response to that is you only one person called. I got a text message on my phone right now where I got like 10 investors texting me like every during the week. They say, hey, what you got? What you got? So if you got a house on the market, says you're on the market 200 days, you already had 20 investors to contact you in a week. You got another 20 calling you this next week.
Yeah.
So now you trying to get back and say, damn, which one called me? Which one do I need to respond back to? The hell with it. One of them call me again this week and we'll do the deal. That's what's going to end up happening because as
We
agent,
will, huh?
that's exactly what I was about to
That's
say.
your follow-up thing. Every
Yes.
week, follow up. Send
Yes.
Andre another text. Hey,
Yeah.
Andre,
that's
I
what you
love you
got
so
to
much.
do.
Your ribs are great.
But that doesn't annoy the real estate agent.
Yeah, that's what I do.
You get a text message. So when they text me, some of them I reply, some I don't. It just depends. Like some of them I reply, like I want to say, are you still an agent? We found your number on HAR. You got any distressed property that your seller needs to sell? First of all, if I got distressed property my seller needs to sell, it's already gone to somebody else. You know, it's not going to be there. Then I got one that I thought I had a relationship with because we did a deal. I had a relative that had a house and he kind of got screwed on his first wholesaler that he did. He came in, signed his paper, didn't call me, didn't do nothing. He locked in on a low ass price. I said, no. You don't have to sell it that low. Let's find this. I can sell it for you for a little more than that. Because I'm talking, by the time he paid for his loan, you only get like 10 grand. I'm like, bro, we can't buy no freaking new house for 10 grand. That's free and earnest money on a new construction. So he kind of got himself in a pickle. So we ended up another investment call. I got with her and she gave me a much better price. Here's what you got to watch out. These investors in Houston, they all know each other because he was under contract with this one, but the one we ended up under contract knew the guy he was under contract with and sweet talked him and let him get the property, and he just gave him some money on the back end to let us get out the deal. Cause we was at a jam. We went $140,000 where he had it. I needed to be at 160 because I needed to get some more money, and so they ended up doing it for 160 for me. And then I called that Sam. I don't reply to her no more. She made me mad. I called that
She talked bad about my ribs.
No, I had a house over here in Lake Jackson. I needed to move bad. I needed that thing at like 275. I had a list for 315. I needed to move at 275 was my low price. And I know the value was there because you come in, you put about 25,000 in. The house is Lake Jackson. It's on Magnolia on the corner, big lot. It's an old house, but it was pretty when she got it. When she got to the jam. I needed to buy this house from me. I said, I need you to buy this house from me. No, we'll have to do 225. I do 225. So she let me down when I needed it. So I don't fool with it no more.
Wow.
So, hey man, you need a favor from me, I need a favor from you. That's how this thing works.
The class.
When We need a deer leash.
This is my dad.
I just need a Botox account. And you can get all the women.
Man,
But
So wrong.
the point you said, David, was spot on, and it was the same thing that you told me whenever I was trying to apply for jobs. Was the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yeah.
In the perfect case of that, it's what Andre's sharing, as well as the Galena Park house that we did. That what was it? Moon and them had that house, and they offered them $100,000 in August, the end of August.
yes,
Then
but the motivation changed.
and then Aldo and them offered them 85 or 87 for that same house.
Yeah,
10 days before we called them.
yeah.
We called them and we offered them 68, and they countered back at like whatever it was.
So we ended up doing it, what, 785?
We ended up settling at 785, and that was less than 10 days
Yeah,
from the previous person that offered them 85. They just called that person back or called Moon back. They'd have made another $20,000.
motivation changed.
It did.
And like Andre said, they were mad at some people.
And when you make the calls though, and you stay in those good graces, you do business with people you like, and you tell them up front, if they told you, hey, look, yeah, I'd like to try to help you on this because I can, or they help you find somebody else that can buy that house at that price. That's how you help keep that relationship. I mean, and you buy them ribs.
Squeaky wheel and kind, and trying to maintain a relationship with that's all we got, because they're still going to have some of this backdoor dealing we
Yep,
talked about.
They will.
Scratch my back, scratch yours.
We're not a big enough fish yet, and I want to get there.
Fish to take people.
Oh, yeah. So you got,
We're going to have to get it with squeaky wheel and kindness.
you got a lot of that happens around here in Lake Jackson, Angleton area, when some of the properties, it used to be bigger back then before technology came. Like those tax sales and everything on Tuesday at the courthouse steps. Them boys already buying on the backside. When you over here trying to find it, the big boys that got all the pockets, they already done bought that stuff. And you like, by the time you get there, it's already sold.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I walked into one, and there was 4 Asian gentlemen that all walked in together with the brown paper sacks, like the old ones from the grocery store.
Yeah.
They sat there and they bid this house up, and between one of the guys ended up spending almost $500,000 on different properties. Just opened up the bag and just started pulling stacks of $100 bills out and just counted them right there in front of the sheriff. Gave it to him, got the paperwork right there in front. The other guy next to him's holding his bag, waiting to collect his property stuff. Goes over there and just said, "I'm like, this dude literally overpaid for," and it was Bar X lots and what they were doing. One of them, the dude paid like $60,000 or $70,000 for this lot that had flooded. And I asked him later, and he said it was a 1031 exchange or something that they were moving over, and then they could wait a month and then sell it for like a $5,000 or $10,000 loss. And then they could, since it was a loss, they weren't going to get taxed on it. And so they were willing to overpay for it to be able to get the money out, then have to pay the 30% taxes.
Oh, there's so much out there that we don't even know.
But once he did that, it started getting me thinking, and then I started understanding why these people were doing what they were doing, and that kept opening my eyes up more and more to the game. And once you understand the rules of the game, you can play, right?
Get the real stuff, show up at the courthouse with guns. We can get out.
Calm down.
Guys with large paper bags. Come on.
All right, we'll go to the next, and then last one. It helps save time, because if you find out the person doesn't care, they can sit on it forever. They're fixed on price. They don't have any motive. They're just throwing it out there to see what they can get. Just tell them, hey, look, this is where we're at. If anything changes, let me know. And like I said, the agents they take pride in pricing their house. And a lot of times they've told the seller, this is what we can get. And it looks like a knock on them if they can't, right? And so explaining to them a lot of times, what I found, to explain to them how we got to our price and that we're not just trying to woo somebody, helps. And then the second part is, if it is getting to the 100, 200 days or whatever, right? Hey, listen, at least a verbal, because it'll start the conversation. And let me be the bad guy. And you say, hey, look, this idiot called today, right? And was throwing out $80,000. And if you're at 150 and I'm throwing out 80 and you really know you got to be at 120, at least it looks better than where that person's at. But I did have this person call at 120. So do you want to maybe consider, and that was another technique that they talked about, that one of the guys I listened to was talking about, that I've used a couple of times. And it's helped at least get a verbal. We didn't get the house, but at least finally got to where they actually made the offer. Because if you can't get the offer to the seller, you're dead in the water, right? It is saving time on that because if we're calling 25 houses or 50 houses, and I think some people ask for 100 a week, if you're calling that many a week too, even saving a minute or two a house is. Yep. And the point is, at the end of the day, you want to make the offer because, and I'll get to that actually on the next one, when we make the offer. Oh, I did add this one in because I came across this. Understanding the 4 pillars of a motivated seller. And so you're not really dealing directly with the seller, you're dealing with the agent, but you're trying to understand these are the same criteria. If you're dealing directly with a seller, like an off-market deal, these come more in hand, but it's still good to understand. The pillar 1 is hardship if there's a pressing issue or a hardship that's going on in the seller's life. Urgency, does the seller need to close or on the sale quickly? Within 30 days is typically considered fast, but we could do sooner, quicker. I know that one of the buyers is, I think they said one of them was like 10 or 12 days that he was asking for, wasn't he, on that last one we sent him?
Oh, yeah.
The spring one, didn't he say like 10 or 12 days?
Yeah.
So you can do quicker too if that's a big motivating factor for them. Pillar 3 is condition. This we're really not as a driver on these houses because these shouldn't be really upset houses. And then pillar 4 is the price because you're trying to figure out what's their. Most people have a non-negotiable knob in there, and they have some that'll float. So understanding what those are. And like I said, these are a lot more pertinent in off-market, but they still help with on-market understanding. So when we get to the last one is actually presenting the offer. Want me to go back?
Yes.
No, you're good.
While she's writing that down, we're dealing with Andre, and he doesn't want to talk about any of that for his client, does he?
Yep. Yes and no. So what you'll find is if I'm the listing agent and you call me and you say, I got a property for 200, and you come at me and you say you want it for 100,000, my first question is, do you really understand I got this property for 200,000? And they're gonna say, yeah, we know, but this is what my guys presenting. So if I'm getting this offer, and all offers, regardless oral, verbal, are supposed to be presented to the seller. Now, but if you come at me at $100,000, I need to see you write that offer out. I would like to see it written out.
Okay.
Because $100,000 offer, I want to see what else are you asking.
Mm-hmm.
So are you asking for on the title policy? So on the title policy on 100,000, that could be $900. So now that's dropping my bottom line. Do you want a survey? What kind of option periods you got? Are you doing earnest money? So I'm looking at all those things because now I want to read it out because there's a lot of things in offer that, a lot of people just say, okay, $100,000 base price.
Right.
What else do you want? Because there's a lot more to it. Is the buyer paying every expense? Or am I still on the hook for on the title policy? You want me to pay insurance? I'm not sure. So on the title policy, you want me to get a survey, all those kinds of things. I need to see what all you offer. Because there's a lot more to offer than just the price. So if you come to me at $100,000 less and I have to present that, I want to present the whole picture, not just part of the picture. And then the key is, are you financing or are you paying with cash? And if you're paying with cash, what kind of cash? Is it your cash? Is it hard money cash? That we convert to cash? So,
And that's where the 10 points and the proof of funds come in because it makes it a lot stronger offer.
But it also, what I'm hearing him say is, I want the in writing offer that you're making. And we've not got anywhere yet. I'm making an offer. Okay, here's all this stuff. In other words, your blanket offer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't think we were doing that until we had actually got to a number. He's saying, oh, when you give me the number, you expect me to present this to the seller. Give me what it is you say you're offering in writing. So do we do that every time, 100% of the time? That's what he's saying he wants.
that's how, if you come to me at $100,000 less, that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
It's very agent dependent. Every agent's going to be different. I had an agent that didn't even want to present an offer, and I said, look, it's your duty to present an offer, whether, like you said, whether it's verbal, written, or whatever.
Yeah.
He said, okay, well then, he's like, I don't want to waste your time or mine. But I said, you're not wasting my time. So I said, I'll write up the offer. I'll write it up myself, and I'll send it over to you. you got turned down, but I don't care. I mean, at least he made him present the offer. So sometimes you have to write them. Sometimes you just don't. It's all very agent.
Sometimes you can do a text, like,
Yeah.
like I've done a text message on the offer, like that, house over here on, I sent you a house over here on,
Behind Brandon or Roberts?
yeah, was it, oh, right on Plantation.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's off Robert. The
So
big
I,
one.
I sent her a text message. I try to put as much detail, like, put it like price, home title prices, no survey, closing here, cash deal. I try to hit the 5 or 6 points that I know I'm looking for. That way she can understand where we are. Because you can just say, I want to do it off for $100,000. Okay, that's not enough for me. I need a little more.
Most of these offers, though, if you're making offers, we're going to take care of everything. All closing costs, all of everything. So you can put up front. So you can already put that out there, saying that, because that is just going to help motivate that agent to take the offer a little bit more. But yeah, everybody's different. I try to make it where surveys are cheap, but I try to say, the seller at least present a survey if they can I pay for it? Because a lot of times they do have their surveys.
Yeah, they do. And even though surveys cost you $400 or $500 on city lots, people don't know. Man, people have no idea how much a survey costs. When you say I gotta pay for a survey, damn, I gotta pay for another company and another company and another company. So you say, well, we got the survey covered. Like, oh, okay,
Typically, most any big buyers, or even the lenders that are lending cash, they don't really care about survey if it's in an HOA community. I don't care. Me personally, when I drive by a property, if it's in an HOA community, I don't care. I know those lines are already, the property lines are set. Now, if it's in a rural area, then yeah, of course I want a survey because I need to know what's crossing it.
exactly what's going through it.
Yeah.
Do I have a pipeline coming across the back that you don't know about that nobody sees? Or if Johnny, because he been had his fence set up for 20 years, this happened to my mom, on the back end, the guy been encroaching on the property ever since they own the property, 10 feet onto her property, until the people that she bought it from died and they did a full survey and realized that the guy was 10 feet on the back of her property. 10 feet on the back of country property, country people don't care. But if it's 10 feet on my property and I'm buying this house, now I care because, oh, you on my property, sir. I don't know you. But if you've probably been in a family and stuff like that, we don't care because we go across the fence and everything. But if it's a new property,
Yeah.
and you got your fence encroaching on my property, I want it fixed. That's why it's good to get a survey, especially the rural area.
We found that on my dad's when we built the house. The guy on the right had put a fence in like 15 years ago, and at on the water side of his lot, it was spot on, but on the street side, it was like 8 foot over because it went over a levee. So the guy got off when he went over the levee, and so he called Trey Sullivan, and they just worked out a deal. I think it was in my dad's favor. I think it was. And so my dad paid him some money just for that sliver of property and got it moved over when they did the survey. But it was the same concept.
In the few calls that I made, I had realtors tell me, no, I won't make it. I said, would you make a verbal offer? No, not doing that.
So that goes to you gotta remind them, because real estate agents, when you come to them at a low price, first thing they gonna say is no. They do it to me all the time. Like the call list I had.
Mhm.
I had a lady. First of all, is this a wholesaler? Yes, ma'am. It's possible. No. I said, what you mean no? I said, you should do it to present every offer, regardless if you like the offer or not. And unless you have written approval from that seller, you're not supposed to answer for that seller. And a lot of agents do, because that seller says, they think that seller's not gonna take it, but they don't know. They haven't talked to that seller. If a house on the market for 60 days, they ain't talked to that freaking seller in a month.
But wait a minute now, because remember job number one was
Get
to
the
win the
contract.
realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship with the realtor. I'm not gonna get a lot of relationships by telling them, yeah, you gonna make the offer.
No,
You gotta make the offer.
It's
I
how
tell you,
you-
ain't your duty to make
It's
the offer.
how you word it.
Yeah.
Because
So the point is, I wanna get to, it's kindness
Mm-hmm.
and rapport with the agent that I'm trying to develop. And I learned two things. One, they gotta make an offer
Mm-hmm.
if I make one. Because I've had several of them tell me, no, I'm not making an offer. Okay, so how do I not offend them and get there? And he's saying, I wanna see something. That was something that wasn't part of our
And that's
normal thing. So maybe, let's work on that. How's I want him to make my offer,
Mm-hmm.
and I want him to not be offended by me asking him to and gently nudging him to, and maybe if I just right up front give him this the offer sheet you had
Mhm.
as a part of every offer I make. That's a way to avoid friction and yet give him something to make the offer with. Is that something we need to be doing? Because I wasn't doing that. I was just calling people and getting no.
Well, what you do is, it's the way you gotta do it. So if you call me and you say, hey, look, I got this house, I got this offer, I'm offering you $50,000 for it.
Yeah.
First thing I'm gonna do is say, if I say no, then you say, okay, well, you're a licensed agent. You gotta remind these agents in a professional way. You gotta remind these agents of their duties. Because we as agents, we kind of get laxed in what we really need to be doing as agents. And if an offer comes, even though it's lower, you have to remind them that, hey, look, it's your duty to present this offer. And so if the first thing out of their mouth, they say no, you don't really want to work with them without everything being on paper anyway, because they're never going to present anything that's a hard no. So you say, okay, they say no. Then you say, okay, but I understand you're supposed to present this regardless if you care about the offer or not. You already offended them because you came at this price and they hit you with a no. That relationship is already here. You don't care because, make them mad anymore by telling them they need to do their job.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you call them back in another week and say, hey, look, I see the house still on the market. I'm gonna go up $1,000 on my verbal offer. I'm gonna see $51,000. And then their mind is gonna change because I got property set for another 7 days. This is the only person that's calling me.
Yeah. That's back to the squeaky wheel. I got the squeaky wheel covered, but I'm trying to figure out how to win this initial. It's normally, no, I've already had 5 offers better than that one on the house. Something to that effect.
I get that all the time.
And so I gotta have a comeback to that and say, well, look, I'm gonna send you a written offer. I really appreciate if you take a look at it. Remember, it's kindness. I'm trying to develop a relationship with Andre, because I think calling him out on what his duty is gonna be,
Rough.
that ain't gonna go over real well.
You gotta, it's all about how you talk to agents. Because when you talk to agents around here, it's way different when you talk to agents in Houston, Pearland, because those agents are very arrogant. They think us country people don't know nothing. And that's just flat out how it is. And so I can go toe to toe with contract to contract and tell them they're missing all kind of stuff because of the training that we have. And also, those agents in Houston, they're a lot busier. Here, we might do 5 deals a month. Them guys are doing 10 to 20 deals a month. That's why I tell you they get that nonchalant, that I don't care, you gotta remind them of the duties, because they're making 15,000, 20,000, but you coming to them at a real low number on a house. That ain't really important to them as the agent, but it's important to them as the seller that they're representing. And you can look on the MLS right now. You go to MLS and you can see a house that's been on the market 200 days. There hasn't been any updated photos. We went through multiple seasons. That landscape was immaculate. You go to that house right now, the house is grown, especially it's vacant. The house is grown up. It just looks like crap. It don't look like nothing they did when they first took the photos. Because the agents don't care about that particular property. So it's just a matter of how you speak to them. You can't speak to them harsh. You just gotta professionally remind them.
I think your approach is good though, because I have sent the 10-point sheet and I've said, hey, look, I'm going to go ahead and send it. You might give me your email. I'm going to go ahead and send you the 10 points. And then before I hang up, I kind of end on a lighter note and I'm like, hey, just heads up, you're going to hear from me again in 7 days if it's still on the market. And I just kind of joke with them, right?
Okay.
And in that way, it's that squeaky wheel, constant drip. And then I also think about the scripture, right? That even the judge that doesn't believe in God with the nagging lady, like gives them what they want.
No, I'm hearing the squeaky wheel thing. He's admitted that help.
The other part, though,
Absolutely, the development of the relationship, I think you gotta, I don't know, I mean.
It'd be good to have a balance of both
Mhm.
from being an outsider, not knowing anything, okay? A balance of both of what you're doing because people do need to be reminded of that.
Mhm.
You know, they do. And they got a job to do. They're representing, they're somebody's covering. If somebody was your covering and they weren't doing their best for you, how would that make you feel?
Yeah.
If they
I
weren't
think
looking
maybe
at all of the things.
Would this be a way to get through the initial, no, I ain't doing that? Could you say, well, I'm gonna send you this offering, could you please just, consider making an offer to the seller? You never know, maybe something changed with them in the last, you go, no, I talk to them every day. Okay, well, thank you very much. You kind of plant a seed and then go on. I'm afraid that whole reminded me of my job. I know how I'd be. If you are calling me and telling me what my job is,
You got to remember,
I wouldn't sell you a house. If it burns down, I would call you.
you got, you
I'm not doing that.
you got to remember, man, these agents, so we don't get paid unless we do a deal,
Yeah.
okay? And so you remind them, you don't got to just flat out, look, it's your duty to present.
No, I got that part.
But you do it in a way to where it's in a casual conversation, but by law, you're supposed to present every offer that you receive.
Okay.
And so when they tell you no, they telling you no without even referring to their client.
Oh, yeah, I got
Okay, that's not looking out for their fiduciary responsibilities.
Because I've asked them, as we were told,
Mhm.
could you consider making just a verbal offer for me?
right?
And now, man, I'm not going to call my client with that. It was back to what he said initially. Andre has told this client, this house, I think we can sell it for $150. And here you are offering whatever it is, some ridiculous numbers you had me offer. So he's already mad. He's already like, well, how am I going to offer? I've already told this guy it's worth $150, and you expect me, because it's my fiduciary, to offer him $75,000. I'm not going to do that. It makes me look bad. You know, it does.
It
Now I
does.
think about it. So
But
I just got to be kindness, and I think sending them the offer helps.
Yep.
I'm gonna start doing that and say, well, you know, I appreciate your opinion, I understand, but in your end, I think a good end is you never know,
Yep.
because we know that happens.
Mhm.
You just described it a while ago. Moon offered this, somebody else offered Y, and you sold it at Z, and just why? Well, because the seller's motivation changed.
And you can offer up that even example to them too. I've done that too. And it wasn't one of my deals. It was one of my friends that did a deal. And I said, hey, listen, one of my friends offered something similar like this.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be the day the guy had woke up and decided he was selling the house that day.
And somehow, as you just said, in light at the end. How about them Texas Sunday? You know, but,
How about Texas choking at the end?
Yeah, we coming at you in 7. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right.
I'll talk to you in 7.
Yeah.
what I found is you gotta try to bring a little humor to a conversation.
Yeah.
Because like, people will call me, or I call somebody, and the first thing I ask is, hey, how you doing today? They pause, but they don't know how to take it. And you like, I'm just asking how you doing. You can't even say I'm doing fine. It's like my wife, she starts laughing because I have them in the truck.
Yeah.
I was like, how you doing today? Oh, they're silent because they're not expecting that. You know, so people are in this world because people, agents, worse people, do not like talking on the telephone. They do not like the telephone. So when you get an agent to answer the phone, you already won.
Yes.
Because I'll call 10 agents
And get their own opinion.
and you get, hey,
Screener.
I'm busy right now, but send me a text message for faster response.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing I want. I'm sorry to cut you off. That's the other thing we need is, remember you talked about before where I was calling, I was getting the real estate company.
Yeah.
Because that was the number that you had.
Yep.
You never get to the agent that way. So you said, yeah, what you gotta do is go look up their number on the internet and get
Yes.
their personal cell.
And I integrated that into the new SOP. If we're looking at the pictures and reading the blurb, we're going to do that on realtor.com. And at the bottom of realtor.com, let me show y'all real quick. This is a really
This
good.
is important.
This
Because
is
if you
big.
don't get the guy, the agent, if you don't get Andre, you're out before you start.
You're dealing with the office person
Yeah.
that's on call. You're dealing with the on-call agent. It's when you call, like,
And
say,
they
Kelly
screen
Williams.
you. They screen you.
So we'll just pull up a house It doesn't matter what it is.
If you ever need, you can always holler at me. I've got MLS access, so I can give you
Okay.
direct internet info for that.
Yeah.
So-
Well, we're gonna have, we got this spreadsheet, it doesn't have the right phone number in it, so the fix is, that's what you're gonna show.
That's what I'm showing. So this right here is realtor.com,
Yeah.
right? You go down here, and so the way that I was doing it was, where's the box? It's not loaded yet. It's still loading. Okay. So the way that I was getting the information was copying this number here.
Yeah.
What I'm finding out is this is usually the broker office number.
Yes, it is.
But if we're reading and looking at the pictures and you click on this link, it takes you to their individual profile.
Yeah.
And on their profile, it gives you their mobile. And
Okay,
so,
Realtor.com.
Yep.
We need to go fill those, change those and fill those in.
so I'm leaving that off right now because rather than having to redo it, if we just put it in there when we get it, that way it doesn't confuse somebody and they call the wrong number.
What now? You're gonna put that number in?
No, I'm saying I'm not putting a number in there now so it doesn't confuse somebody and put the wrong number in.
Gotcha.
But I put that in the new SOP, Standard Operating Procedure.
Realtor.com, got it, thanks.
And then it also will give you more information on the actual brokerage and them if you need to know anything on there.
Yeah.
I need training on how to be rejected.
You rejected? That's easy.
Girl, that's life. No. You living it?
Not for me.
Oh, you are not human.
You what?
Human or
Door
something.
knock, free foreclosure.
I said,
Get off the porch!
no, but I mean,
Use it real quick.
no, like if somebody says no, I'm like, okay, great, have a nice day. Like, I don't want to deal with, like,
No,
I don't want to
first
I'm not a negotiator.
Oh,
That.
Andre, I need you to
Dad
I
said
need y'all
no.
to spend some time with her on
No,
teaching her how to
seriously,
negotiate.
Daddy said no. Okay, no problem.
all she gotta do is come to the house.
No, I'm
It's like
telling
a
you,
grass
like,
walk away.
I do not.
It's a
question
grass walk
authority.
away. It's 50 yards over, not even that far.
That's why I told Michael, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be good at this, man. I don't question authority. And he's like, you just gotta learn how to
Yes, she
negotiate.
She
To
does.
who? To who?
Girl, Elton told you to do something one time when you were
That's
leaving on a
Elton.
Sunday, and he is your authority.
That is Elton. I'm
He's
talking
a-
about somebody I don't know that's older than me, that's been in the business longer
Also
than me.
depends.
How you know older
Okay,
than you?
okay. And he is older than you.
All right,
I'm just.
let's
saying, I need
finish
a
the
class on-
slides and then
I need a
we'll,
class on that.
So-
Classes daily.
when we present the offer, as we've already been establishing, and this is a great discussion though, because that's exactly what I wanted to spend the majority of the time is how do we overcome objections. So it's been perfect. The discussion we're having is perfect.
I think she read your PowerPoint, bro.
No, I didn't.
She actually did. I tried to talk it through with her the other day and she fell asleep in the middle of it.
So,
But I did ask him. I said, I think you do need to have in there what we're looking at as far as like whenever we're going kind of through the conversation with the realtor.
Yeah.
Just like I need to know some.
So a lot of the callers were getting, the people that weren't in the industry were asking me, what do I do on the phone? Like, do I just spit out a number?
Teachers. He's dealing with
Because
teachers.
a lot of the teachers, they need a more structure, right? And so I was helping them because they're doing a good job and they have empathy and they can communicate. It's just teaching. It's actually, if you boil it down, you're kind of in sales because you got to convince the kids they need to learn what you're presenting. But it's just a different way of thinking about it, right? And so, well, what we're doing though is we're establishing the baseline of worth and it anchors the negotiation. Because in reality, we got to set what is an investor and what is a non-retail buyer. What are they realistically going to pay for this property? And it's a service. Like what we're doing is we're offering them a solution, a real solution, and the sheet helps with that because it's in writing. It's not just, I'm just fishing, right? It's an actual solution that can help give them hope to go from the current situation to their desired situation. And when you see it in writing and you're holding it in your hand or in your inbox and you see it, there's something different about that than just a random text message that you don't think about anymore. And we're going to do it. We'll execute it. We'll do our best to be able to close that as long as there's not any unforeseen. But with most of these prices, we should be good. And then the last one I put in here, and I left it open-ended, was the overcoming objections because I wanted to spend time talking about that. But it was perfect how we've integrated that as we've talked because it makes it where it's not as laborious at the end. And that we're talking through the common objections because most of them are, it's a laugh, right? Or you can't get the person on the phone. Or I think there's some other ones. I'll pull them up real quick that made a lot of sense that I've seen. What are other objections that we've heard or that you've heard or had?
I've already had 4 offers this week better than the one you just gave.
Why did they take that? What is the reason they didn't take that offer? Find out why they didn't get to that. What was the reason they didn't accept that?
So your method is you answer with a question.
The implication was though that their
It was
offers were
price.
all better than yours and they were too low. So, I mean, that's the inference you get. So why should I consider your much low offer? My only comeback has been, never know what motivates that guy. I've changed since last time you talked to him.
That's, I mean, that's a good comeback. You can also ask, when was the last time those people that followed back up with you to check on that offer? And a lot of these companies, a lot of these people that are doing these things are not following back up. There's a lot, because it's a numbers game. They're just calling. It'll be a month before some of these companies will follow back up, sometimes 2 months. And a lot of times they're putting them in drip campaigns, and a lot of times you're texting these people.
Which we're gonna have that, right?
Yeah.
The drip thing.
I wanna do-
Richie just referred to the automatic, so I don't gotta go back in there and look and see.
What I want to do, and I haven't got to it yet, I want to expand. There's a program I have called Deal Automator that sets up, you can set your team up in, and it's a CRM, which is a customer relationship management tool. And what I would like to do is then import the data from y'all spreadsheets of the realtors and their cell phones and emails back into Deal Automator, and you can set reminders in there where it'll say every 7 days, go call them. And then eventually you have to pay for this part, but it'll integrate the texting and you can have a template and it'll,
Has that on EXP.
But you don't wanna send it if it's sold, right?
right.
I have access to hers.
So that's a little bit of a.
So right now, what I have in the, right now in the sheet, I still have current status of the property. So when you look at it, if it's pending or sold, then we don't contact them back. But if it's still active, it's just, that's why I like the Google Voice, because on the Google Voice number, you can actually do it on your computer and just have a headset. And so it's easier to type the text message out, or you can create, I may do this, remind me to do this, Meg. I can actually create 5 to 10 templates of follow-up text
Yeah,
and put that in the file, and then you just got to copy and paste the text and update the address and offer price
yeah.
and the agent's name, and then you can send that.
It's
And-
still manual. And it's
Right
gonna
now.
be manual because we gotta go check the status, or did you say that actively, your spreadsheet doesn't automatically?
No, it will not right now. If I automate the data pool and I get a bot scraper, I can, but I haven't absorbed that cost monthly
We
yet.
gotta go in manual anyway, look at that. So we might as well. Yeah,
It's easier to do on your computer though, the texting part, because it's a lot faster to type it and you can do it quicker with like click and drag and paste and then just. Yep. And we were talking about, Richie and I were actually talking about, there's different softwares like Zapier and some other ones where we can integrate those texting campaigns in. But until we're able to, one, vet this bulk buyer and vet their formulas and stuff, we didn't want to incur monthly costs on infrastructure until we could validate it. But once we can validate it and we have a couple months where we can consistently get them to buy deals, I'm open to getting that to streamline that, because, and y'all can speak to this, but from what I've read and people I've talked to and what I've seen, I think the average is 5 to 7 or 5 to 9 touch points before you actually will probably get through those more difficult agents and sellers. And so a lot of the deals are in the follow-up. And like Richie was saying, most of these guys don't follow back up. And the guys I've been talking to that do it for a decade or more and wholesale for a decade or more, almost every one of them say the deals are in the follow-up. And the real estate stuff, because I've started deep diving that for real estate marketing to help Megan on it. And every single one of them that I've seen that's doing 10, 15 million in sales plus a month, every single one of them says your deals are in your contact list and in your follow-up. Because like you said, well, how many text messages do we get a day, right? And it's in that follow-up.
Yeah. Like literally, I was just having constantly.
But so y'all are asking about, so I'm putting this in the drives. This is the double dip technique. These are Jerry Norton's materials. I bought into a program of his and he gave me like 50 different, you get like 50 different templates for different types of things. And so one of them that I'm sharing is the agent double dip technique. And this is the one where you actually offer the listing agent to represent you and do dual representation, where they represent the seller and the buyer so they could get the full commission versus just the selling commission. This worked really well for them for a while because typically it was 3% listing, 3% buyer's agent, so they could get 6%. But after the NAR lawsuit in like October, November, some brokers are not allowing their agents to do dual representation because they don't want to be put in that camp of looking like they're price fixing. That's what was the lawsuit was around. It was in Ohio, wasn't it? I think it was Ohio State.
What town? So basically, the lawsuit was talking about buyers having a choice on the commission is what a lot of it broke down to. Because when you look at a listing agreement, your listing agreement says, hey, such and such, Andre Tarver is gonna list this house with Coldwell Banker. I'm gonna list 1316 Laurel Loop, and we're gonna list that for 6%. Then we go down. We're gonna do the cooperative agent is gonna get 3%. So that 6%, we're gonna split it 3 and 3. That's how you get your double dip. The lawsuit says that agents the lawsuit says that sellers were being forced to pay for the buyer's commission. That's how that lawsuit all started. So in essence, states that doesn't have the intermediary, that's in the smaller states that don't have the ability to do like dual representation, because then you'll learn this in your trade law. There's really not a way to do a dual representation. We do an intermediary, and in our intermediary says, hey, if you have your house for sale, you listed a house and you want to do the buyer, first thing you got to do is go through your broker. And that broker can appoint someone from that office to represent that buyer. But you got to ask that buyer one question. Do you want representation? That's the first question if they say yes, then your broker or your office manager will have to appoint somebody, and then there's an intermediary form that we have to fill out. If they say no, then you just keep on rolling, but just remember, if it's your listing, you always represent the seller, and you can only present that buyer with facts. If that buyer say, hey, what do you think they'll take?
Can't answer.
I can tell they take listing price.
And the way that this presents it, and I'll go down, is the verbiage is, I'm currently unrepresented on this property. Would you be willing to present my offer and represent me? Because it's basically saying what he's saying. I don't need representation, or you can represent me. I'm okay with that. You're saying it up front before they even have to ask it, because you're calling the agent that's listing it directly. So in some of them, like we said, like the one we did in Galena Park, the agent wanted to do it because it was a Redfin agent. So she was going from 1% to 4%. But then her broker said, no, we ain't doing that. You got to go find your own buyer's agent. So that's when I called Andre. I was like, hey, you want to do this one for us? And he's like, yeah, shoot. So then we went through and started doing that. And then he's helping us negotiate on some other stuff too as well. But that's
So
the,
Andre jumping in here now.
No.
Well, so, help me understand something. Are you saying that, yes, we want to continue to do this, or no?
yes, we want to offer it.
We still want to, offer, I keep using Andre because he's
Right.
offer Andre, say, I don't have a buying agent, and I'd be thrilled if you would represent me on this property, knowing that you are the seller's agent. That's how you want us to present it.
Yes,
And then it's okay per the law
yes,
if Andre's company is okay with him doing it.
yes.
Okay.
Because it's more incentive for that seller's agent at that point, because they basically doubled it. Even if you went to half the price, they still got the same commission.
It's always been more, I got that part. So isn't it customary for the seller to pay the 6%?
But that's what's going to change. What they're talking about changing is the buyer now is going to have to negotiate. The seller's only going to pay 3% or whatever they negotiate for listing the house, and the buyer's going to have to sign a contract negotiating with their agent that's going to show them houses, how much they're going to pay their agent to show them houses. They're starting to split it because they're saying it's not fair to make the seller pay for both of them. So the buyer needs to pay for their agent, the seller's going to pay for their agent.
But that's what you're talking about, the 3 and 3.
No,
But the 3 and 3 of the current listing agreement will say 6%, and then we split that.
whoever's selling the house.
Whoever selling the house. So if you sell your house, you're gonna pay that commission that you offer it up. 6% to Coldwell Banker, that's what company. You offer 6% to Coldwell Banker, really not to Andre, it's Coldwell Banker.
Mhm.
So now, I have a choice, that's what people miss out, is you paying me $10,000. Now, it's my choice as a brokerage to split that 10,000 in half to give to that buyer's agent. So in reality, the seller is paying me. Out of my money, I'm paying the buyer's agent.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of times this is being missed. That's why, this lawsuit is missing that point, because, hey, this money is going to Coldwell Banker. Now, what Coldwell Banker does with this money is up to them. And we choose to pay that buyer's agent half of that money.
Right.
But they make the lawsuit saying to where the seller seems to be paying for the buyer's commission, which in reality is not, because the seller is only paying Caldwell Banker. Caldwell Banker is paying that other agent. Because that's how when we get the contracts, I'll show you.
But what they're getting to though on it is that they want each individual party to pay it individually.
Pay individually.
And it's
But
been
the
like,
buy- But the seller to actually sell a property is gonna be negotiating away that 3%.
So that's what,
So that's what's gonna happen. Nothing's really gonna change money-wise. The seller's still gonna pay 6%. It's just gonna be more, fully disclosed on who.
yeah, it's just gonna be basically saying that, hey, the seller is gonna pay, and the seller has agreed to pay the buyer's commission. It's gonna be some verbiage.
Because if the, never mind, I won't belabor the point.
Well, if you
He's
think,
already covered
you
it.
think about this real quick is, if you think about a buyer, how much money they got to pay. If they're buying a $400,000 house, and you got a buyer's agent, that buyer's agent wants 3%. That's 12 grand. $400,000 house, you put down 5%. So 405, that's 20 grand. So now we at 32,000. Now we want to put down 1% earnest money. So now we at 36,000. Okay? So that's, that right there, that 12,000 that you would have that you thinking you got for furniture, now it's going toward a fee.
right.
So the
Plus
sellers-
closing costs is about
I'm talking
10%.
about the cost, so closing costs anywhere from 3 to 4%. So that's another 12.
Taxes,
You know,
prepaid
we got
taxes.
the prepaid.
Nothing's really changed.
So we're not, our broker told us when we had training on this 2 months ago, we just gonna keep doing what we're doing. When the new contract come out, or new whatever come out, we'll figure it out then, but right now, we just gonna keep on rolling, because we hadn't had any problems, you know, with anybody griping about commission. Now, when you do a $500,000 deal and you put 6% commission up there and you put estimated cost at $30,000, that's why you got the issue.
Right.
But it's like, that's just a cost of that's just a cost of selling an expensive house.
And I think it was the Ohio Circuit Court that did it, because they were talking about in Ohio now they are splitting them, and that you have to negotiate it. And then the second part of it was the marketers could not discriminate if they weren't doing 3%, because Redfin and Zillow and them, Redfin listed houses at 1% weren't being shown
Yes.
on the other websites, and Zillow was segmenting for sale by owner and Redfin houses under the other tab. So if you didn't know to go into the filter and switch to the other, it says other properties, you would not pick up any of those houses. And so they said that was a cartel monopolizing it. And so it actually said they had to change it. That's why he got rude on his house.
Oh, man, it's always been like dealing with the union. No, really, it was always negotiable. The 3%, actually the 6%, was always negotiable. Yeah, it's negotiable. But anything less than 6%, your house won't show. Because we, the collective realtors, will just be.
I like that.
Yeah, we're not coming to show that house. Not for 5%, 2.5 apiece.
And so, this is what I do, like, if when I did this on a deal, and I just did a dual deal in November, I think it was November, where they bought a house from me in Magnolia, we sold a house over here in Rochelle, and they had bought the house from me in Rochelle, and they bought some land from me. I'm gonna put whatever commission is good, so for them to have their numbers right, I took their listing for 4%. And I paid myself 1.5%. And I put on MLS 2.5%. And the reason I do it because I found that 2.5%, you still gonna get your agents gonna come and show it, because now with the prices and with everything, a lot of things, 5% is good as far as commission right now.
Okay.
And so I told him, I say, I can't split that 4%. I can't do 2 and 2 because it's never gonna show.
No, it never.
It's never gonna show.
You can sell it.
And that's what I told him also. I say, if a buyer wants to see a house bad enough, they'll go past their agent and they'll call you to show it. And now double dip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
So to answer your verbiage question, this is the example they give in their training. Hi, my name is Michael, and I'm an all-cash buyer. I'm aggressively buying properties in the Houston area. Reason is because I'm underrepresented. I'm interested in making an offer on listing at 123 Main Street. What I'd like to do is let you represent me as my buyer's agent and write and submit the offer for me. That way, you'll get both sides of the commission. How's that sound? And then that basically gives them the ability to have the out to say they already told me that they're unrepresented and they're okay with me representing them.
Okay.
And this will be in that Google Drive.
Want us to say?
No, but some do, but that's the basically I'm unrepresented and interested in letting you make the offer is the basis of it, but that's the framework that he uses. You don't want to sound robotic, but
I mean, obviously.
Yeah, but if you come in, you want me to present an offer for you. Say I got this property, you want me to present this offer, and you trying to slyly tell me, hey, I'll let you do both sides. Basically, what you would say is, I don't have an agent right now, so and you can have it in the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can call and say, hey, look, I got this property I would like to buy. I don't have an agent for it. Would you be willing to help me out? We can do a deal together. Something like that. Don't just tell them, hey, look, you're going to get both sides. Just tell them you don't have an agent right now. And then that's how you can kind of go into your conversation. Because if you call me and we talking, I'm going to ask you eventually anyway, do you have an agent?
Right.
Because I've got times where I've had people call on the listing. We talked 10 minutes on the telephone, and I did not ask them if they had an agent. The last sentence was, well, if we decide, we'll get our agent to call them. Instead of me asking early in the conversation, which, you only provide facts on the phone call anyway. But it's just a matter of you didn't waste your time, but you kind of wasted your time because in a certain part of your body, you're like excited. And you get to 6%. But a lot of times when I do, and it's just me, and you'll learn this too, it's of your judgment. If your brokerage allows you to negotiate your commission. But if I get both sides, I'm generally, if I got it listed for 6, generally I'm going to cut one off and just do it for 5. Because a lot of times we're going to go buy another property, and that's more money for them to get with their closing costs of the next property. Those little things really really add up and help out the next person and shows you that, hey, I'm here for you, not just to make a paycheck.
And that's what that agent on Colony Drive was telling us when they got in the bind, the homeowners.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her this, and she lit up because they were in a bind and they couldn't really afford to give up much on price. And that's what was opening that door at the end, was because she was going to get both sides and she was going to work with them. And basically, I think she dropped it down almost 4%, and to help them get out of that house, because she was going to help them buy another house, but then they ended up canceling or timing out the contract. And then this one is actually, so if they get a pocket listing, which is a listing before they go to market, if an agent calls you back, then this is how you can bring it up with them, right? As I mentioned, I'm a cash buyer. We can close quick. Can you give me a heads up on any new listings before they go on the MLS? I can check them out and get you our numbers right away, and before it goes to all the agents. So what they do on here is a lot of times before they're actually going to publish it, I've had a couple give me a call or shoot me a text and say, hey, I got this one coming in on Thursday. What's your number? And I'll just text them, this is what my number would be on that house. And so then they don't have to do any marketing. They may not even taken pictures yet, or they just had them on their cell phone, right? They hadn't gone and hired a photographer or anything, right? And especially an investor-friendly agent. And if you've talked to them a couple times, I go ahead and ask them, basically, are they investor-friendly? Like, Andre, I'd be okay talking with him and saying, hey, look, we also wholesale, we this, we that. Some agents, if you say wholesale, they won't talk to you again.
That's what I was calling.
They won't know that right on real food.
A lot of them will ask you.
Yeah.
They'll just say, are you wholesaling? And what I tell them is, we can. It's one of our exit strategies, but we do that to try to make sure we don't ever have to cancel a contract. Because their main objection with a wholesaler is they don't want to tie the contract up and then not be able to sell it, and then they cancel it in 10, 15 days.
And also, agents like me, until Mike started educating me on wholesale, I ain't gonna lie, I hated wholesale.
Right.
Because I always thought, it's like ripping people off. That's just flat out honest. And a lot of agents, old school agents, they don't want to hear wholesale because they're thinking, ain't legit. Nobody wasting my time because you trying to wholesale. I mean, wholesale, cheap. That's what people coordinate
Right.
those two with. But now Mike has educated me on how I can help people, how I can benefit. So it's a different mindset now.
It's cheap, though.
It's still cheap. But now,
From the peanut gallery.
Now you can understand the value. It becomes a value thing now.
Right.
Not just, I'm trying to buy this property for cheap. It's, hey, you want to sell me your house? Then you agree to sell me your house for half of what you got listed at? Who am I to say is ripping people off? You chose to do that, not me.
Well, and two, what we talked about one night when you came by was some of those investors will actually never call an agent because they don't want to deal with an agent.
Right.
And so it's almost anti-MLS, right? Because it's a different set of buyer pool that would never go call you because they just hate dealing with agents, right? And so, I mean, it's really two sides of almost the same coin, but just a different, because just like I can't get on the MLS without going through an agent, right? There's a big pool of investors that you could never sell to without having somebody that's in that, that's willing to go be that middle person, right? And so I think
Why
it's,
would you want to deal with agents? They just ripping everybody off.
Hey, man.
I see agent, I see overpriced.
You know, because
But that's,
being an agent, and when they sell real estate, the first thing they think, a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the first thing people think, we make a lot of money.
You do.
But first of all, when you take a 10 grand commission, 35% going to the government unless you got freaking 10 grand commission, 20% going to the brokerage. So that's 8. Now that 8, you take 35% of that 8, whatever that number is, because it's going to the government because you're an independent contractor. Right? So now you down to pretty much $4,000.
Pretty much. That's what I was making every month as an educator.
Exactly, yeah.
Pretty much.
It's-
On a phone call once a week, bro. Come on.
I'm just saying, people
That's what I was
think
making.
people think we make
Come
this
on,
big,
come on.
big,
That's
big
just like rich people griping about paying taxes. Paying taxes because you're rich.
Fantastic.
All right.
You ain't got no write-offs. That's why you pay taxes.
let me go. So this is what y'all were talking about.
Write-off. That's wildlife. You have wildlife on
Nah.
your property.
And, so we were talking about what you all bringing up, right? The seller objection. So these are the scripted answers that they have, and then I'll kind of open up and let Andre, Richie, everybody talk about negotiating or anything. They have tips and tricks they've learned for the last 10, 15 minutes. But exactly what you were talking about, David. So one of the ones he says is, you're right, it's a low offer, but I'd still like you to present it. If anything, my low offer will prompt the seller to do a reduction, which would ultimately help you sell the property. And who knows, maybe they might be ready to be done with the property and they'll take my cash offer. I can't tell you how many times it's happened in the past, even though it's low, will you please submit it? Just like you were saying, basically, right?
Yeah,
And then if they still don't want to do it, I keep thinking it's my touchscreen.
there it is. Someone will do it.
If they still won't do it, I'll tell you what, can you at least call the seller and give them my offer, just like you said. I really believe that my offer is fair considering the time, work, and money, which we may need to rephrase that on this group because this group of houses isn't as much work because a lot of these are rent ready, but the bulk buyer has a very set standard is what we're finding out. They have specific flooring they put in, specific granite, like even if it's fine, they're going to change it out because they put only certain stuff in there to reduce maintenance costs and everything else later on, which is something you can use when you're talking to the agent and just saying, hey, look, we have a set brand, we have a set thing that we use. And in doing so, we always put this type of vinyl flooring in, we always use this paint, we always put this carpet, this stuff, this, because then the maintenance goes down, the repeat, we can keep it in stock, it lowers our cost of repair, all that stuff. Anyways, work money on this property, it needs, and if I were the seller, I would still want to know what the cash investor is willing to pay. And then just like y'all mentioned already, if they still don't, it basically says, all right, well, I'll follow up with you. And then it gives a prompt for an email follow-up. And then it gives a prompt for a phone follow-up. And then I have some text ones too. And that's your other follow-up, another email script. And then here's the 10 points that we talked about.
Send them that, we're saying is the right thing to do.
I would still send it to them. I'd ask for
After all the notes, say, well, look, I appreciate where you're at, but can I have your email address? I just want to send you all what we talked about today and what my offer is on,
Right.
on the property.
and I'll follow up with you in some days. But it's got your name and address, the buyer, and we'll have that information for you price, funding, proof of funds, we'll include it, condition, this, and I'll fix what needs to be like not changed. And then I'll leave some variables in there where y'all can add and modify what needs to be. It's a condition of title, it's a warranty deed, and it's as is. Inspection contingency, 10 days from accepted offer is pretty much our blanket starting point. Earnest money, $1,000. Closing date, 30 days from accepted offer. Access to property, this one's big if it's vacant, but if it's on the MLS, it usually already has a Supra or it has a lockbox on it that we can use. But the seller to give the buyer unrestricted access via the contractor lockbox if it's vacant. What I changed here is if it's vacant, do this. If it's occupied, unrestricted access given 24-hour notice. So that way we can get the contractors and inspectors and potential cash buyers through the house. Closing company, I'll provide the company name that we're using. We found another one that's pretty good. That real title that I started using on the last two houses, the lady was really good, and they actually do all the creative stuff as well. And they'll do creative on FHA and VA, so I'm going to start trying to use everything through them. We could still use Colton and Capital on the cash ones, but anything creative they're not doing anymore.
Going to the big buyer though, we have a specific title company that
Okay.
we like to use. So, and we can also make it where we're not having to put up, if we have to double close on property, they're going to use the buyer's funds. So we don't have to put up any type of new transactional funding or anything like that. That saves a lot of costs. Yeah, we get a little bit taken out, but it's not that big of a deal. We don't have to go through the hassle of setting up transactional funding.
So we're not gonna fill in that closing company?
I will give Michael the title company, and then you all can start filling that in depending on which properties are what. We can put that in there and say, hey, this is the title company we want.
Well, we don't know at the time when we're dealing with realtor, whether this is going to big guy or somebody else.
So we could leave it with this, seller to close with buyer's title company of choice.
Yeah.
We could leave it that way
Yeah.
for now. And then
Probably not a sticker anyway.
no, usually it's not. Sometimes it was, Galena Park it was. That's how we got real title, because we had Colton and Capital.
Yeah.
And they already had title open, and it had got all the way to funding, and it fell through. So title already had everything done. And so,
What we're saying about putting something there, we're not getting anything. In fact, we may be excluding.
correct. So it's been maybe better to leave
Better
this.
to leave it like that.
Yeah. Sometimes though, it does help. I will take that back. The buyer on, I think it was, what was that place over by your house, South Shore? That big house?
Oh, yeah, so, yeah.
When we talked to one of them, having an actual title company in there made it more legit to them that we actually were working with a title company.
Okay, well then put both. Just say so-and-so or
Right.
buyer's note, style of choice.
And then this is a blank one, which I copied this and I created a new one and I put that in there in the Google Drives. The last 10, 15 minutes, I was going to just open up and let one ask any questions of any other content y'all may want me to cover, because I got everything set up now so I can start filming some of the stuff and covering nuances of how to do it. So I'm creating, or I've got a lot of the standard operating procedures, how we're going to do it, that I'm putting in the drive so we have it written out. I'm going to try to create some short form videos and create a private Facebook group, because I didn't want to put it on YouTube because I was afraid if an agent or a seller got on there and saw, it would just put a bad taste in their mouth. So I'm going to create a private Facebook group, and I can actually upload videos to the private Facebook group that all of us will be in, that we can watch it as many times as we want. And it also creates like a community forum where if we have questions or we run into something, we can put it in there and share things that worked well, things that didn't work well, and start, because it's going to be hard. Like Megan said, like it's hard to deal with rejection. And I think odds are right now, it's like what, 1 in 100 or so right now is even getting close. I mean, the first couple calls we made, we were pretty lucky that we were able to move through really quick on those. But the average, what I'm hearing, is 1 in 100 when the people that do it day in and day out on a bigger scale, and they work it down to about 1 in 50 to 1 in 30 once they get better at it and we're able to get better analytics on it. And so I wanted to create a space where we also had a little bit of a community thing in there, so it doesn't feel like we're alone just getting griped at on the phone. And I'm going to try to create, my ideal vision is also, and maybe within a couple weeks to a month, create maybe a reoccurring meeting like every other Sunday or something on Google Meets or something where we can hop on if there's anything we want to talk about or just cover a topic if we're starting to see something consistent. And that way too, it just gets a forum where people can ask questions and we can answer things that may be causing issues. But anything that we see, and we've covered a lot of topics already that have been problematic, but anything else that we've seen that's been problematic or things that y'all'd like me to work on addressing that would help.
I know what the teachers are gonna need.
What is that?
We're gonna need like a walkthrough, like you're gonna have to show us all the.
It's like a sit and call.
Yeah.
So if we set up a time where maybe we could do something like this, but all we do is actually sit around a table and actually make some calls. Okay.
Yeah, I need to be a part of that.
Okay.
It's like student teaching. It's
I
real
mean,
time.
what now?
They want to do like a sit and call where like we do
It's
something like
just
this,
real
but we're literally
time.
sit around with our individual sheets up and we all just take turns calling our own people with everybody around, helping give feedback to each other so we can make it more effective.
It's just, I mean, in my mind, it's just like student teaching because you're in front of the students and you're troubleshooting every problem that's happening real time, like what it really looks like. So that's what I know. That's what the teachers are gonna need. That's what I need.
Okay.
Like you can give me a script and you can give me whatever, but
Hands on.
Yeah.
Hands on and yeah.
So you can do also, you can do mock training.
yes,
Like role play?
yes.
So role play will stem the teaching. Like say, you can do it right now. Come on.
Hey Andre, this is Megan. I saw this.
Make it with what?
I'm Megan with Small Town Home Buyers. No, Big Tex Home Buyers.
That's fine.
Okay, this is Megan with Big Tex Home Buyers. How are you doing today?
Doing fine. How about yourself?
Yeah, the new year bring you some good stuff.
It's okay.
All right, well, listen, I'm looking up this property here on 123 Main Street, and I've noticed that it's actually been on the MLS for a little over 2 months. What's going on with the house?
Let's just wait for the right buyer.
Okay.
Come on, let's talk. Don't worry about this. Just relax and talk.
So in the phone, like, do you immediately present the offer and be like,
So at that point, it'd be like, all right, so what's the right buyer for this house? What's been the problems with the other people?
what's been the problem?
Or what's been the challenges?
Why
Because
has
if
it
you,
been on? Why has it been on?
why do you think it hasn't sold?
For 2 months or whatever. Why do you think it hasn't sold for 2 months?
Well, everybody that's came with offers are really low, and my buyers really don't want anything less than this price.
So what are you going to think about at that point? Think about what we're trying to build, right?
Relationship.
Hey, man, that's frustrating. Why do you think all the prices, our offers have been so much lower than the list price? Because you're backdoor getting into the condition of the house. Because of every offer that's came in, nothing's been close to the asking price.
Something's wrong with the house.
There's something that somebody else is perceiving that either the agent or the seller doesn't see. Does that make sense? So if I'm asking $150,000 for a house and it's been on there for 60 days and the average market time right now is 30 and it hasn't moved and I haven't got a realistic offer, either there's something wrong or it's not posting right. It doesn't have good pictures. It doesn't have, there's something either like the outward appearance, the marketing's off, or there's something wrong with the house. And at that point I could pivot and say, well, have you had any open houses or anybody come look at the house? Or what's the traffic been like through the house? And then if he tells me that he's seeing 10, 15 people a week go through the house, but he's not getting an offer, something's wrong with that. See what I'm saying? How you backdoor into this conversation. You understand where you need to get to. And then depending on his feedback, is what he's done, he's kind of cold and shut off on it, right? So you're going to have to ask more leading questions that are open-ended.
That's how.
Hey, is there I'm just thinking about, like when Andre lists a house, we call Little Banker.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have a set time? It's like 6 months, isn't it? Where if you hadn't sold it, then they renegotiate.
It's all everything on these things. I can do a 30-day listing agreement. I can do a 90-day listing agreement.
Okay, so that's not standard,
You know what I'm saying?
and so it's not set. Where I was going is if you can, because we're talking about finding a motivated seller, but if there was if it's been out there for a while, you got a motivated realtor, because he's fixing to lose that
Correct.
Timbuktu realty if he doesn't sell it.
And that's the drip campaign, because you don't know when that contract's going to end. That's why I said that drip campaign can be critical, and sending that sheet so they know you're legit or you're willing to. And so, hey, you remember, Andre, I talked to you last week about 123 Booger Picker Street.
Yeah,
I'm still willing to do this deal. Is there any movement on the house?
Yeah.
And as you keep doing that, it just,
Also on the motivated realtor aspect, so we just said, we don't really know. There's nothing to know when he's gonna be motivated, whether, if he's had it for 3 months, he's probably needing to sell it, or he's fixing to lose it anyway to somebody else. There's not one of those.
The average is probably 3 or 6 months.
Yeah, so most listening agreements are 90. If you got this agent that just stickler, they'll probably try to go 180.
Right.
I'm not gonna do a listening agreement more than 90 days.
90 days,
And
okay.
the reason I do mine for 90 days, because typically when you look, unless it's land, most houses will sell in that 90 days.
Yep.
We might have to work that price to get it to move, but most houses will sell in 90 days, number one. Number two, you can terminate that listening agreement at any time, as long as both parties agree. So in that 90 days, if you don't like me after a week, we can terminate this relationship.
Yeah.
Or I can terminate my relationship with you because I say, hey, I need you to keep the house clean. I need you to make sure that when I set appointments,
You're ready to
that
stop.
people can come, have a house listed. Every appointment, lady never answers the phone because we all use a scheduling service. Lady never answers the phone. I'm like, I've lost 5 showings because you didn't answer the telephone. And so this is not working for me because I'll spend $300 on pictures. I always, if a house, I got a house listed and it's a nice house, I'm gonna get pictures taken. I don't put a price on it because a lot of people say, oh, I'm not getting professional photos unless the house is $300,000. No, pictures cost $250, $300. If it's a nice house and don't need like work and I'm not investing on nothing like that, I'm getting professional photos. So I put in my listening agreement that if we terminate early, I want my money back because we terminated for a reason. Now, if I'm not moving this house in 90 days, then we talk about the price. Did we do anything as far as price wise? Did you do any staging like I asked you?
My real question here is, are you ever more motivated than any other time? Really not? If I'm at day 85,
It does not matter to me
doesn't matter to you.
because I can do a 30-day listening extension. I can do another listening agreement. I'm not worried about that listening agreement ending
You're not.
if I'm doing my job. Okay? I'm more worried about that house moving in the first 30 days than I am in the last 30 days. Because the first 30 days, that's when it's hot. The last 6 to 90 days, we call that a stale listing. Because now it's just sitting there. So now it's,
But what are you doing to keep it up?
all right, when you look at the MLS, when you look at the MLS, you will see a house on the market. And it'll say, house been on the market 2 days, /33 or /300.
They'll relist it.
What they've done is relisted it, not because they did anything different,
Just get back
but
up.
when you relisted it, it brings it back to the top.
Right.
Because now, because we have what's called a hot sheet. HAR has a hot sheet. We can do that hot sheet for 24 hours, 3 days, a week. Basically, that tells us all the activity that's happened on HAR in a specific zip code.
That's another fee that you pay. You have to pay that fee.
Yeah, no, it's part of your HAR MLS fees.
Okay.
So, I said, what, I'm glad one day y'all have another meeting. I'm glad to pull up my HAR account and I can show you how things work in HAR. I can show you what we have access to. I can show you how you can put people, how you put people on we call a drip campaign to
Yep.
see what houses come up in that criteria. Like my daughter's boyfriend, we have him set up on one now because he want to buy a house that he want to rent out. So we sent him stuff, and I think he looked at one because you get a notification. Other agents get a notification called reverse lookup that says, hey, your client looked at my house. So they'll email you and say, they looked at my house, what they think, they won't look at it. And so that's just another conversation. It's all kind of tools that we have. And
Because they all know the deals are in the follow-up.
I'm just used to talking to little 9-year-olds. I don't know.
and so
Most adults act like a 9-year-old is what I find
You ain't
out.
talking to nothing but a grown 9-year-old.
A bigger 9-year-old.
That's all you talking to. We got no different.
But to go back to our first question on that role play, though, when you get to that point, it can be overwhelming because it's like, where do I even go with the conversation? Understanding that we're trying to get to condition, motivation in the framework of building rapport to then make an offer is you basically have to figure out, as a wise man once told me, have your arrows in your quiver, and then you redirect whatever the question is to get your arrow out, right? And so you understand where you want to get, and then you have to walk through whatever the conversation is to get to where you want to be, to get the information you need to know if you can make, or you're going to make the offer, but to know how to make the offer. And then know if you need to go ahead and cut it off and just say, all right, because yeah, if they're real blunt, real short, whatever, maybe you just go straight into the offer, right? But if it's not, and they're conversational and they're wanting to talk, or you sense that there's more to the story, then you can kind of push it. And
You
or
can
you-
fill the room,
Yep.
so to speak. Know what's
or it's like, hey, are you busy right now? Is it okay? Like, because something may be distracting. You may be just sounding kind of distracted right now. Is there a better time I can call you back at? And because a lot of wholesalers I know, they don't care. They're just going to shotgun, call it spray and pray. They're just making offers and praying that one sticks. And but more of that, like you said, that customer service, that friendship, that courtesy, really. And
And you don't want to keep them on the phone too long. There has to be a balance because there's talkers. I mean, my God, there's talkers. And you'd be like, are you done yet? And they start checking out.
Right.
So you have to fill the room and not just be just blabbing and blabbing and blabbing and blabbing and blabbing.
Right.
You just have to know when to cut it off.
That's right. They want you to get to the number. What do you got, man?
Yeah, but you also got the ones that's why I was doing another role play, it's some that don't want to talk. They don't want to be on the phone. They hate to talk. And so, yes, no. It's no open-ended questions. It's no open-ended dialogues. Basically, why are you wasting my time? What you want? Is the kind of the
And you can tell by the tone.
Yeah.
When you're on the phone, because I've done phone work for over 9 years, almost 10 years. You can tell by somebody's tone. You can tell a whole lot by their tone
right,
if you're paying attention, but most people don't
right,
because they're just about their agenda. But if you are a listener and you sit back and you be like, okay, this person sounds kind of short, their voice has that little, I better get straight to the point.
Yep.
It's not bothering you. They
Yeah,
just say, hey,
yeah,
look.
and you could just, and sometimes they may just have that tone of voice and there can be the nicest person in the world, but you have to kind of fill that out.
He
David.
has that.
What?
This one, the first time I heard him, I was like, I don't want to talk.
He's got a nice voice. You got a radio
Yeah, I heard
personality
him in high
voice.
school, but the first time I heard him talk on the phone in high school, I was like, I don't want to talk to him.
Why was that?
Because you're just like,
You're no nonsense, straight to the point.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get to the point.
I mean, I'll
You know.
bullshit with you if you want to bullshit. But I'm straight to the point. I've been in sales a long time. Like,
Sure.
everybody's different, and my main thing is like whenever I get in front of you, that's whenever I can sell you and I'll close you, no matter what. Like, I can close people over the phone. I like in-person appointments better than anything, and that's why I like negotiating with sellers, negotiating with realtors and contractors in person. That's where I'm.
Look at eyeballs.
Yeah, because I've got you once I got you in person.
That's scary.
I never met
Yeah.
any nice realtors. They're all just short.
Like, once I got you in person, you ain't going nowhere.
You're mine.
Yeah.
And most of the realtors that you're gonna deal with, a lot of them are quick and they want to get to the point too. They don't really want to bullshit.
They don't have a whole lot of time.
Yeah, they're very quick.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
So I know I'm 5 minutes over what I said. So
Yeah, you're good.
I was gonna say I know I'm 5 minutes over what I said, so I respect y'all's time and be done. But I'll be here for a little bit longer until my dad kicks me out because I'm gonna start picking stuff up in a minute. But the
Nobody hated this stuff but me.
No, I
yes,
had
we
played.
did. We were coming back here.
Yeah, kids got church.
but I appreciate everybody coming and email me or shoot me a text with any topics y'all want to cover and we can get some material. And even if we need to, I appreciate everybody coming and sharing their experiences. And if I need to find somebody to help bring some expertise on something too, I can do that, make some calls, and try to help make it as successful and help everybody build their skills up as much as I can and help, because the more we get the whole group going, I think the better it'll be overall as well. But I appreciate y'all's time. I'll be here, young, sit for and linger for a minute if you have any questions or want to chat with any of us.
So what's the next move?
I'm going to start populating the sheets with the new data. See you, Andre. And
Sheets.
Nice to meet you, Andre.
your call sheets. I'm going to start populating the call sheets with the data for the big buyer, the bulk buyers. And I'm going to also upload the new SOP for how we're doing that to make sure we don't miss anything. And the only new part is looking at the pictures, reading the blurb, and then getting that cell phone number for the realtor. And that's pretty much the only difference where we make the call. And then we'll troubleshoot Gwen's.
Better, right?
The what?
The big buyer.
Some of them are and some of them aren't. because some of them are overpriced. I was showing some of them to Richie, and some of the zip codes, they're still lower. They're like in the 70-75%, but some of the zip codes are better. But there are some that are better. There are some that are in the 70-80% range, not as like 50 and 60% of what they're asking. So there should be better success with that. But yeah, I'll start populating that, and then we can start making those calls this week, and then I'll get those, like I said, those operating procedures out, and then I'll make sure we have those 10-point sheets updated with the information. And then the only other thing I need to do, but I probably won't get done this weekend, and I may be able to steal something from Richie, is the main things to look for, like for those big five or like major repairs to ask about, because I know like Megan asked me, and I know Gwen and some of the other people have asked me, like, what are major repairs? Because they hadn't dealt a lot with real estate. And so give them just a quick go by of things to listen for, to ask for with an agent if you're asking them about what a major repair.
Though, if you're dealing with a 1980 and newer house, you shouldn't have to worry about plumbing, you shouldn't have to worry about the electrical. The only other two things you're gonna have to worry about is the foundation, roof, and